Chapter 2462. Forget it, forget it. Xiaohua felt a headache coming. She smiled and said, "Just pretend Mother didn't say anything. You'll understand when you grow up. And Mother is right. Boy feels a bit enlightened now. I can vaguely remember a lot of things." Goldie was really different from before. "Ha ha, that's great. Mother thought you only knew how to eat and sleep. It turns out you also have an inheritance." Xiaohua was really addicted to being a mother. She said it very naturally. "Why did Mother call Boy out?" Goldie looked at the Buddhasarira, looked at the clear water bottle, and then looked at the wind pearl. "Oh, this wind pearl might have a hidden soul. Mother wants to keep the wind pearl and let you guard it for Mother," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Okay." Goldie shook its tail happily and flashed to the side of the wind pearl. "It's not for you to eat." Xiaohua saw Goldie's nose and hurriedly shouted. Goldie heard and raised its little head. Its two little eyes were like black pearls. Its voice came from Xiaohua's heart again. "Boy also didn't think of eating." Sweat. Xiaohua was embarrassed. "This little thing has grown up. It's really naughty." Goldie's nose twitched a few times. It used its little claws to fiddle with the wind pearl a few times. It shook its head and said, "Mother, there's nothing edible in this thing." "Ha ha, good." Xiaohua was overjoyed. "You watch from the side. If something strange comes out, you eat it in one bite." "Yes." Goldie stuck out its pink tongue, which was smaller than a little finger, as if it was hungry. Xiaohua swung her big sleeve and covered the wind pearl with the universe creator. Just as she was about to refine it, Goldie suddenly said, "Mother, the smell of this thing is similar to our family's duck." "What? Our family? Duck?" Xiaohua was stunned, as if she didn't understand. "It's the big duck that Mother threw into our house," Goldie said curiously. "It's the duck that smells like that little girl. This thing also has that smell." "Oh?" Xiaohua somewhat understood. "Could it be that this wind pearl is related to the Empress? Let's go home and take a look," Xiaohua said as he sent Goldie into the space. His consciousness also entered the space with the wind pearl. The duckling was still in a deep sleep, and the wounds on its body had mostly disappeared. However, the healing speed was simply too slow, and there were still some faint scars. Goldie landed beside the duckling and swung its tail, hitting the duckling's eyelids. The duckling's eyes turned a few times and slowly opened. It was Daphne's pair of lively eyes. Goldie's shadow was reflected in the duckling's eyes. The duckling blinked and opened its mouth, but no sound came out. Then, the duckling raised its head with difficulty and looked at the wind pearl next to Goldie. "Quack, quack!" It was really the quack of a duck. The duckling was excited, and its voice was hoarse with difficulty. "This?" Xiaohua's mind was right next to the bead. He unconsciously hesitated. He still wanted to use this wind bead to practice the wind escape technique. Moreover, he also wanted to use this wind bead to refine a magic weapon. "I'll have a magic weapon sooner or later, but Daphne only has one life." Although Xiaohua knew that Daphne's life was no longer in danger, he still sent the wind bead to Daphne's mouth. Daphne's tender yellow wings flapped slightly. After Xiaohua sent the wind bead into her mouth, her wings stopped flapping. Whoop! As the wind bead entered Daphne's mouth, a faint sound of wind came from Daphne's body. This faint wind revolved around Daphne's body and gradually grew bigger. Everything within 10 feet was sucked in by this wind. "My goodness, what are you doing? This is my home." Xiaohua was anxious. He looked around and immediately pulled Daphne, sending her to the center of the yin-yang pool. "Eh? Why is it as light as a feather?" Xiaohua realized that Daphne was now a gust of wind, weightless. "Go, do whatever you want here." Daphne stopped in midair. The hurricane around her suddenly grew bigger, like a huge tornado, piercing the blue sky and pouring down the blue water. Daphne's duckling figure gradually became blurry. "What's going on?" Xiaohua was puzzled. "What?" The tornado brought the water of the pool into the air. The water turned into raindrops and fell around the pool. There was a lot of rice around the pool, and dozens of puppets were tirelessly harvesting and planting them. Whoop! In the sky, the sun-like reverse light roared. A dazzling brilliance gathered and poured into Daphne's blurry figure. Swoosh! Rings of rainbow-colored light appeared in the hurricane, sliding from the outside to the inside. As the light shrunk, Daphne's figure also became smaller and smaller. In the end, she became a ball of air the size of a thumb. Gotcha! With a loud explosion, the lightning that was supposed to hit Zizi's body changed direction and fell into the ball of air. The ball of air blossomed with a dazzling brilliance as the lightning was annihilated. The figure of a naked girl suddenly appeared in the brilliance. Damn it, don't look! Xiaohua hurriedly closed his eyes. Unfortunately, he was a primordial spirit. How could he close his eyes? Moreover, the image of the young girl only flashed for a moment. Then, a pure white swan the size of a small duck appeared in the light and shadow. That slender neck, those arrogant eyes, and those slightly trembling pure white feathers looked extremely elegant. As the little swan spread its wings, the brilliance began to slowly extinguish. A feather emitting a holy brilliance fell on the little swan's forehead. However, it only fell half a foot before the little swan stretched its neck and swallowed it into its stomach. I understand now. Xiaohua looked at the little swan's curved neck and 2 wings and thought of phone booping. That guy's spiritual beast is probably this thing, right? His wind pearl is not some magical treasure, or the inner core of a spiritual beast, or something else. Dyer is not a duckling. She can grow up after eating the wind pearl. However, just as the brilliance faded and Dyer was about to spread her wings and fly away, the entire space trembled. An incomparably oppressive will descended from the sky and enveloped Dyer's body. In an instant, the swan that Dyer had transformed into disappeared and the little duckling appeared in front of Xiaohua's eyes again. This is... Xiaohua felt a familiar and somewhat fearful will. He couldn't help but be shocked. Isn't this the heavenly Tao's fluctuation of the heavenly Tao starry sky? How did it beat Dyer back to her original form? Dyer transformed from a duckling into an elegant swan. It seemed like she was about to transform. A fluctuation similar to the heavenly Tao descended from the sky and beat Dyer down from the clouds into a quagmire. Dyer returned to her previous appearance, as a fluffy duckling. Xiaohua was shocked. Isn't this the fluctuation of the heavenly Tao starry sky? How did it land on Dyer's body? Xiaohua's mind looked at the deep starry sky and thought to himself. In the high starry sky that was almost within reach, stars were floating leisurely. Each star had its own trajectory, and all the stars seemed to be following the same trajectory. Looking, Xiaohua's mind seemed to turn into a cloud, slowly rising higher and higher. As his mind soared, the attractive force between the stars became stronger and stronger. Perhaps in the blink of an eye, or perhaps in an extremely long time, Xiaohua's mind felt the trace of primordial spirit that had merged with the heavenly Tao starry sky. This primordial spirit was different from the primordial spirit in the hand of karma. It actually had the appearance of a star, and like the other stars, it also moved in the starry sky with a faint, mysterious trajectory. When Xiaohua's mind merged with that trace of primordial spirit, Xiaohua felt that he was also like the star in the secret realm on Blood Red Island. A heavy and abundant force was emitted from his body. Rule! This is the power of rule! After transforming into a star, Xiaohua's thoughts seemed to have slowed down. After a long time, a very unfamiliar but somewhat vague idea surged into his mind. Under the heavenly Tao, there are all things, and all things are orderly. This order is the rule, and to maintain this rule, one must have the power of rule. The heavenly Tao is originally a kind of rule, a kind of rule's origin and a kind of rule's assistance. Xiaohua seemed to have comprehended something. Between the stars, within the star that Xiaohua had transformed into, this kind of heavy power became increasingly clear and bright as Xiaohua comprehended it. Even my heaven and earth in the sleeve technique only relies on magic power to control the enemy within a certain range. Because the enemy's magic power can't resist mine, this magic power that exceeds mine can be seen as the power of rule, and I use the power of rule to control everything within this range. Green seal script looks very mysterious, but in reality, it was also the ancient celestial beings who comprehended the rules of the heavenly Tao and used the green seal script to drive the rules, creating wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The more Xiaohua thought about it, the more subtle the fluctuations of the star became, as if it wanted to be in tune with the heavenly Tao and the starry sky. A kind of profound, ancient, and eternal feeling was born from the center of the star, and gradually spread throughout Xiaohua's mind. Mother! Suddenly, a panicked voice came from Xiaohua's mind. It was Goldie's call. Oh! This voice pulled Xiaohua out of his meditation, and the fluctuations that were in tune with the heavenly Tao naturally came to an abrupt stop. That was close! Xiaohua suddenly woke up, and his mind immediately broke away from that wisp of primordial spirit, but that primordial spirit still transformed into a star and flew far away. If I had comprehended for a while longer, it might have been a few years, a few decades, this young master would have turned into a star, into a wisp of the heavenly Tao. Xiaohua's mind quickly fell, and Goldie asked again. Mother, what were you doing just now? The boy felt that you were getting older and colder, and the boy felt very scared. -8. Chapter 2463. It's all right. Xiaohua's mind calmed down and saw Goldie floating in the air next to the yin-yang pool. The duckling was still a duckling, but it was quietly floating in the pool, looking very peaceful. That wind pearl should be the inheritance of Dyer's original spirit beast. After Dyer takes it, not only will it be good for her injuries, it will also promote her growth. Everything just now shows that Dyer is a spirit beast like a goose. She even has the strength to transform. Xiaohua looked at Dyer and understood. However, in this young master's space, there is a rule. Spirit beasts can't grow. This is probably the reason why the eggs can't hatch. Therefore, the power of the rules forced them to return to their original state. However, since she can already transform, as long as she leaves this space, she will definitely transform. There is no need to worry about this. What this young master is worried about is that if I don't have the confidence, I can't let her out of the space. Xiaohua was a little worried. This space was his biggest secret. Now, no one knew about it. If Dyer left the space, with her vision, she would definitely know some things. If she followed these things down, she might be able to discover Xiaohua's secret. Xiaohua couldn't be careless. Although he was willing to save Dyer and the Empress, he didn't want to put himself in danger. Goldie, you stay here with Dyer. Don't tell her anything. If something happens to her, tell me. Xiaohua instructed, and his mind left the space. That's right. How can there be such a rule in my space? While Xiaohua was retreating, he was still bewildered. Inside the pill refining cave, the Buddha's light shone. The Buddha's sarira seemed to have made great progress. The Buddha with a trace of his primordial spirit was like another Xiaohua, clumsily and slowly moving his incomplete arms. The two hands that were already clear changed from the previous posture of one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the ground, slowly changing into a Buddha seal. Xiaohua used the blood shadow technique to cultivate the dragon transformation art, and then used his primordial spirit to control the Buddha's sarira. Rise, Xiaohua shouted in his heart, and the Buddha sarira also made a sound. The Buddha seal in his hand waved, and the clear water vase indeed responded and slowly flew into the air. Here, the Buddha sarira moved again. Above the pristine water bottle, a green light flashed. The pristine true water rushed out and covered the entire cavern in an instant. Whirl! As the Buddha's seal moved again, countless tiny whirlpools were formed from the innate primordial water. Ha! Amitba! Xiaohua laughed heartily. The Buddha sarira was also smiling from ear to ear. So this Buddha sarira can be used like this? As long as he used the relic to activate the Buddhist artifact would be like an arm. There was no need for any psychokinesis. No, could it be that the power that could move the Buddha's sarira was psychokinesis? Forget it, I'll talk about these questions when I have the chance in the future. Either way, I now have another artifact to use. Immediately after, Xiaohua put the Buddha Saraira into his body. The clear water vase also fell into the Buddha Saraira's hand. Although it was still holding the Buddha Saraira with one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the ground, the clear water vase was held in the palm of the hand pointing to the sky. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua slightly released his Buddha's consciousness and pointed with his hand. It seemed like he was forming a seal, but secretly, he was controlling the Buddha Saraira. With a toss of his hand, the clear water vase flew out. It was precisely where the seal was formed. Poor! Xiaohua reprimanded again. It seemed to be a mantra. At the same time, the Buddha Saraira opened its mouth and formed a Buddha seal. Pristine true water immediately poured out of the clear water vase. Ha ha ha, I'm really smart. Isn't this the legendary hanging a sheep's head to sell dog meat? Xiaohua laughed loudly. I'm the best at this. After the clear water vase was put into the Buddha Saraira, Xiaohua waved his hand again and took out a large piece of jade essence. Xiaohua thought for a moment, and a true samadhi fire was created. It burned at the corner of the jade essence, and a drop of sparkling jade liquid gradually appeared. Hee, I already have some experience in refining this jade talisman. It's time to practice. Xiaohua wanted to refine the jade talisman in high spirits, but when he saw the green bean-sized drop of jade liquid in the air, Xiaohua hesitated again. Yes, it was a rare hesitation, and also a rare lack of confidence. This is a jade talisman. Even a nascent soul cultivator can't refine a jade talisman. Can I refine it successfully? Xiaohua's heart was beating like a drum. If even I, a late Foundation establishment cultivator, can refine it, would it still be a jade talisman? However, Xiaohua carefully pondered over the refining technique of the jade talisman for a long time. Although the technique of the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain was the most basic, it was still a genuine refining technique of the jade talisman. It was much better than the refining techniques of the yellow and spirit talismans that Xiaohua had seen. Of course, because the Huang clan's technique was at the most basic level, when the runes were poured into the jade essence, it was also abnormally crude. There were only a few rough records, and it was simply ominous. If he really refined according to this technique, he definitely wouldn't be able to succeed. Xiaohua's lost confidence slowly returned as he compared it with his own method of pouring talismans into the talismans. He had a vague premonition that his method seemed to be used to refine jade talismans. If it was used to refine yellow talismans and spirit talismans, it would instead be inferior. Forget it, the path of cultivation is like rowing a boat against the current. I have to give it a try. At this time, Xiaohua's Dao heart was already incomparably firm. He only hesitated for a moment before flicking his hand. The jade liquid dripping from the jade essence flew into the air with a dang sound and unexpectedly produced a metallic sound. Then, Xiaohua slightly opened his hand, and his 5 fingers grabbed the jade liquid from afar. He spun it, and the entire jade essence began to rotate. Moreover, as the rotation intensified, a tiny vortex appeared in the middle of the jade liquid. Then, Xiaohua began to form hand seals. It was the fireball talisman that he was most familiar with. When the talisman took shape, Xiaohua grabbed it with his hand and shouted, "Go!" The talisman flickered with a trace of bright yellow brilliance, and rushed into the jade liquid. Kacha, the talisman landed in the center of the jade liquid, where the vortex appeared, and a small yellow dot appeared in the depths of the vortex. Woo! What seemed to be a swift small hurricane produced a powerful suction force from the small dot, and it was sucked out from the place where Xiaohua's hand seals were formed. The magic power around Xiaohua's body surged, and it surged violently towards the small dot. Xiaohua was somewhat shocked. This jade talisman is really amazing. Xiaohua's magic power was so profound now, it was comparable to the peak of the late gold core stage. Although the magic power required by this jade talisman could be supported by a middle gold core stage, to send out so much magic power in such a short period of time perhaps even a late gold core stage would not be able to maintain it. Only this young master's meridians are thick, and my magic power is vigorous, so I can send so much magic power into the Jade Talisman in such a short period of time. Xiaohua saw that the Jade Talisman was about to take shape in a few flicks of his fingers, and secretly thought, if there is even a trace of magic power stagnant, the Jade Talisman will be broken. -8. Chapter 2464. Just when Xiaohua was slightly distracted, the flow of magic power wasn't too smooth. With a loud bang, a fireball that was almost 10 times the size of Xiaohua's fireball talisman appeared. The Jade Talisman that Xiaohua was about to successfully refine actually exploded. Withdraw! Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. His right hand didn't dare to be negligent. He used the heaven and earth sleeve technique and covered the fireball. Fortunately, Xiaohua's movements were still considered fast. When the fireball was annihilated, Xiaohua's Taoist robe was also somewhat damaged. The fireball produced by the Jade Talisman was actually comparable to Xiaohua's heaven and earth sleeve. Ha ha ha! It really is a Jade Talisman! Extraordinary, extraordinary! Xiaohua, who had always liked to use the fireball talisman to bully others, had an excited brilliance flash in his eyes. The technique that was commonly used during the qi refining stage could now reappear in the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua immediately savored the failure just now and somewhat understood. It wasn't just that he was somewhat distracted just now. More importantly, when the fireball talisman was formed, the infusion of magic power had to depend on the degree of condensation of the talisman. Depending on the complexity of the talisman, and even the speed of condensation, different amounts of magic power poured in would cause it to explode. This was much more difficult than forming hand seals and refining talismans. Perhaps I should use Buddhist awareness to observe. Xiaohua thought of Buddhist awareness and immediately rested for a bit before refining again. With the release of Buddhist awareness, Xiaohua very keenly perceived the speed of the Jade Talisman's condensation and the complexity of the talisman's nearby runes. In addition, his control of magic power was also very subtle. The first fireball Jade Talisman was very easy to refine. With a crisp sound, like the cry of a fire sparrow, a flame-like bright yellow Jade Talisman fell in midair. At this time, Xiaohua already had a somewhat unperturbed expression as he caught the Jade Talisman. In the naked eye, circles of brilliance flashed from the Jade Talisman. It was the color of flames. Moreover, the entire Jade Talisman was also flat, extremely similar to the shape of flames. No wonder it's called a Jade Talisman. The formation of the runes within the Jade Talisman required an enormous amount of magic power. It was precisely because this magic power was used to construct the entire Jade Talisman that the amount of magic power required to activate the Jade Talisman was not much. It is precisely because such a large amount of Fa-Li is condensed within the Jade Talisman that when the Jade Talisman is activated, it can absorb a large amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth. This is why the Fireball Talisman is so powerful. Xiaohua's eyes slightly narrowed as he quietly looked at the exceptionally exquisite Fireball Talisman, and secretly pondered. However, the strange thing is, this seems to be my first time refining a Jade Talisman. But why did yours truly have a familiar feeling in his heart? It seems like this young master should know how to refine it. Moreover, this technique was originally used to refine Jade Talismans. Could it be that, in my 10,000 demon realm, Jade Talismans are extremely common? Xiaohua now felt that he should be from the 10,000 demon realm. After refining the first Fireball Jade Talisman, Xiaohua easily refined a few more Jade Talismans before stopping. He clapped his hands and wanted to take out Tu Hong's storage bag. To be honest, after taking away Tu Hong's storage bag, Xiaohua was a little regretful. After all, as a sword cultivator, he would not care too much about a cultivator's storage bag, especially when a nascent soul cultivator was close to him. His habitual action would easily expose his identity as a cultivator. However, since he had already taken it, what's the use of regretting it? With that thought in mind, Xiaohua's mind reached for the bag of holding. Just as he was about to take it out, however, his heart skipped a beat. Damn it, I shouldn't take out the bag of holding. What if there's something special in there? Wouldn't it expose my whereabouts? It's best to be careful. Thinking about it, Xiaohua only opened the storage bag in the space. His mind was now trained well, and he could already complete simple actions. Tu Hong's storage bag had a lot of things, and it was also abnormally complicated. Xiaohua only took out San Ling's magic treasure and some jade slips, and after looking through them, he found a method to refine the ice deadly mirror. Moreover, in the space, he carefully examined it with his primordial spirit. This ice deadly mirror is actually divided into 2 parts. Xiaohua looked for a moment, and was surprised. This Sanling's magic treasure is also a part of the ice deadly mirror, but it can control the array, and through the array, see things that can't be seen by spiritual sense. That's why it was divided into 2 parts by Tu Hong. That's not right. After looking for a moment, Xiaohua frowned again. This ice deadly mirror can not only create an extremely cold array, but it can also create an illusion array, and this mirror light can also hurt people. Even if the ice deadly mirror is refined to the extreme, it can also be used for short-distance teleportation. Why is it so similar to the Kunlun mirror? Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the rock border sect's Kunlun mirror. Unfortunately, at this moment, the pill refining cave's restriction flickered slightly, and Xiaohua's primordial spirit left the space. He patted the token in his bosom, releasing the restriction, and saw a message talisman fly in. Xiaohua's spiritual sense swept over, and he jumped up with a smile. How come the 2 of you came out so quickly? Didn't eldest senior brother fight for dozens of days? Forget it, since eldest senior brother isn't here, I can be considered an elder of the Myriad Thunder Valley, and Dui Qiming has become my Myriad Thunder Valley's wife, so I have to see her. I'll come back to cultivate in a few days. As for the ice deadly mirror, this young master won't be stupid enough to refine it in Sentry City. Isn't that courting death? Xiaohua put away all the items and was about to walk out of the pill refining cave when he suddenly thought of something. After a slight hesitation, he waved the token and opened the restriction. In the corridor outside the pill refining cave, Dui Qiming and Shui Hongshan were standing respectfully in front of the cave entrance. Seeing Xiaohua's figure flash out, Dui Qiming's face flushed red, and she bowed respectfully. Qiming greets senior brother Xiao, many thanks for senior brother's help. Shui Hongshan was also a little embarrassed, and he hurriedly bowed with Dui Qiming. Many thanks, senior brother. Ha, you 2 come in. Xiaohua waved his hand and returned to the pill refining room. If senior brother still wants to cultivate, this little brother and Qiming will leave first. Shui Hongshan was very polite and didn't want to disturb Xiaohua's cultivation. Come in, there's no need. Xiaohua's voice came from inside. Yes. Shui Hongshan glanced at Dui Qiming, and Dui Qiming's eyes flashed with deep affection. She said, if senior brother wants to let us in, then let us in. It's also a farewell. Farewell? Xiaohua's voice was a little surprised. You're returning to Sky Thunder Peak so soon? Shui Hongshan and Dui Qiming quickly entered the pill refining room and nodded with a smile. Yes, senior brother Minghui has already sent out a communication talisman. How about? At this point, Dui Qiming blushed again, and her face became hot. And, you 2 wait a moment. Xiaohua activated the pill refining room's restriction and said with a smile. Wait for senior brother to be a little busy. With that, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the 7 possibilities sex flowing cloud flying ship. This flying ship is better for senior brother to use. Shui Hongshan thought Xiaohua wanted to give him the flowing cloud flying ship and hurriedly waved his hand. I wanted to give it to you and let you bring it back to Myriad Thunder Valley. Xiaohua laughed mischievously. Unfortunately, it's already been seen by the 7 possibilities sect's disciples. I'm afraid there will be a dispute. Oh, so it's like that. Shui Hongshan was also worried. The 7 possibilities sect is the most tyrannical. Since they've seen it, senior brother will be in trouble. That's right. Xiaohua nodded and threw the flowing cloud-flying ship into the air. He released his divine sense and looked at it for a moment. He couldn't help but frown. This flowing cloud-flying ship doesn't seem to have any imprint. Xiaohua immediately withdrew his divine sense and released his Buddhist consciousness to carefully look at it. Oh, so it's here. In the inner layer of the flowing cloud-flying ship, there was actually an imprint. 3796. That divine sense couldn't detect at all. This is probably the flowing cloud-flying ship's serial number. Xiaohua was slightly shocked. If the 7 Possibilities sect knows about this serial number, wouldn't they be able to find out who has it? Then the matter at Chicken Crow Mountain will be troublesome. Hee hee. Xiaohua waved his hand and used his magic power to wipe away the imprint, leaving no trace behind. All right, let's go. Xiaohua's heart was set. He waved his hand and stored the flowing cloud-flying ship into his space. Senior brother, actually, this flying ship isn't anything good. If the 7 Possibilities sect forces it, it's better to return it to them. Cui Hongshan said worriedly. And I have my own plans. Although Xiaohua didn't say it out loud, when had something in his hands ever been taken away by others? Even a nascent soul cultivator couldn't take it away, so why would he care about what the 7 Possibilities sect wanted? A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Cui Hongshan looked at Dui Qiming and said tactfully. See. Xiaohua very sensitively understood Cui Hongshan's meaning. He couldn't help but recall Qian Mo's awe-inspiring righteousness attitude in the Yanxi Residence's discussion hall, as well as his attitude towards Dui Qiming and Cui Hongshan. Xiaohua couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This young master neglected this important point. And I understand. Xiaohua replied indifferently. You all should return to Sky Thunder Peak as soon as possible. There's no need to worry about these things. Also, here are 2 medicinal pills. You all should take them. Yes. Cui Hongshan no longer had the feeling of superiority from before. He respectfully replied and carefully took the 2 unremarkable rejuvenation pills. See, Dui Qiming obviously knew about these pills as a fanatical expression appeared in his eyes. They're just ordinary medicinal pills. Don't think too much. Xiaohua saw this and waved his hand casually. Yes, this concubine understands. Dui Qiming's heart trembled. She didn't say anything else and took the pill from the jade bottle. She felt the flickering lightning in her meridians. How could she not know? That feeling of gratitude was like the water of the heavenly river flowing endlessly. That was because Xiaohua used several 100,000 spirit stones worth of rejuvenation pills as a favor. How could she not be grateful? Ai, what a pity! The ageless pills I kept are already gone. I still have to find time to refine some more. Xiaohua, the mysterious alchemy grandmaster of the Dawn Rain continent, thought. -8. Chapter 2465. Xiaohua had just flown out of the cave with Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming when he was shocked by the lively scene in the cave. This was the second time Xiaohua had come to the cave, but both times, it was unusually deserted. Few people from the Imperial Thunder sect came close, which made the disciples of the Sky Patrol City look down on the Imperial Thunder sect. They could not help but be arrogant. However, at this time, there were several lines of disciples in front of the cave. All of them were in the late stage of foundation establishment. They were all handing over to the disciples guarding the cave and were about to enter the cave. Damn it, it's really a night of spring breeze, thousands of pear trees blooming. Looking at the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect who suddenly appeared, Xiaohua was dumbfounded and inexplicably recited a poem. Ha ha, fellow Taoist Xiao! Not far away, the guard of the Sky Patrol City, Changshu, flew over and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist, have you finished your meditation? Just now, I saw your message and wanted to go in. However, it just so happens that a golden core cultivator wants to enter the cave, so I can't leave. Moreover, fellow Taoist token, haha, it's from another sect, so I'll wait here. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua smiled and nodded slightly. Thank you, fellow Taoist Chang, I'll remember your kindness. Ha ha, fellow Taoist Xiao is too polite, it's just a small matter. Chan Shu said embarrassedly. Oh right, why did my Imperial Thunder sect suddenly have so many disciples coming to the cave? Previously, it seemed very deserted. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he asked in a low voice. Ha ha, fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't know. Chan Shu also smiled and said, Yesterday, your Imperial Thunder sect used dozens of thunderbolts to send many disciples to the Sky Patrol City. It's said that there are many disciples in the late stage of Foundation establishment. Some of them want to refine pills themselves and some. I'm afraid that it's inconvenient to cultivate in the quiet room, so they came to the cave to cultivate. Then, he said with a serious face, Actually, after my martial uncle Tu Hong was assassinated by Qin Jian, not only did my Sky Patrol City increase the defense of the city, but the Yanxi Prefecture's conference hall also issued an order to the various sects to mobilize their disciples to come to the Sky Patrol City to support. Your sect's disciples are the earliest to arrive. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiaohua nodded. Then, he thought to himself. Not only that. Perhaps someone from the Imperial Thunder sect had come to participate in some impossible ceremony? Hee hee, you guys better go back and participate. Xiaohua was proud of himself. At this time, a few late-stage Foundation establishment disciples arrogantly walked past Xiaohua and the others. They looked at Xiaohua and Cui Hongshan with dissatisfaction. Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming hurriedly moved to the side and slightly bowed. Humph! Even though Xiaohua couldn't recognize which lightning palace these disciples were from, he felt displeased just by looking at them. He was too lazy to salute them. His behavior naturally attracted the cold gazes of many late-stage Foundation establishment realm disciples. What's the point of glaring? When you return from the battlefield, it won't be too late to glare at this young master. Xiaohua immediately thought of Kun Yunhe and the others and sneered in his heart. Hee hee, fellow Taoist Xiao, let's talk over here. Don't block the path of our late Foundation establishment senior brothers, Chan Shu said with a smile. Xiaohua waved his hand. There's no need. Fellow Taoist Chang, you should be busy. I'm going back. Good. If fellow Taoist Xiao has anything to do with this Chang, please let me know, Chan Shu said very politely. Xiaohua didn't comment and was about to fly away. But at this moment, he thought of something and transmitted his voice. Fellow Taoist Chang, this Xiao has something to ask. Oh? Fellow Taoist Xiao is too polite again. Chan Shu raised his eyebrows and said very discontentedly. Fellow Taoist, if you have something to ask, just say it. Oh, it's like this. This Xiao has participated in a secret auction in Jinghua City. I wonder if there is such a secret auction in Sentry City? Xiaohua transmitted his voice and asked. This? Chan Shu looked around. Although he was transmitting his voice, he was still cautious. He said, This kind of secret auction naturally exists, but this Chang's status is not high and has never participated. Oh, so it's like this. Then I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Chang. Xiaohua was quite disappointed. He cupped his hands and said, Then pretend this Xiao didn't say anything. Fellow Taoist Xiao, Chan Shu hurriedly shouted. If fellow Taoist wants to participate, this Chang can help to inquire. If there is news, this Chang will inform fellow Taoist Xiao. Hee hee, very good. Xiaohua nodded. He knew that Chan Shu didn't have any confidence, so he didn't have any expectations in his heart. He cupped his hands again and flew away with Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming. Sure enough, as Chan Shu said, the Imperial Thunder sect had replenished a lot of disciples. The entire station was very lively at this time. The disciples flying around were all in the middle and late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Looking at their excited expressions, it was as if they came to Sentry City to pick up military achievements. I don't know how the conference hall fooled them. Xiaohua turned his head and looked at Dui Qiming and Cui Hongshan. The two of them also had a sigh. After all, They came back from the battlefield and had long known the danger and blood. Not to mention the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm, even the gold core realm cultivators and illusory swordsmen, who had full confidence to protect themselves. Besides, it was easy to dodge an open spear but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. Who knew where a hidden arrow would fly out and take your life? When they arrived at the meditation place, Xiaohua had already seen 20 to 30 disciples in the middle and late stage of the Foundation establishment realm standing there with dissatisfaction on their faces. In the middle of these disciples were Jin Minghui and the others. Jin Minghui, Su Qing, Qiu Su, and the others had awkward expressions on their faces. They cupped their hands left and right, as if they were explaining something. Seeing Xiaohua flying over from afar with Cui Hongxun and Diu Aiqiming, Jin Minghui and the others showed joy. They raised their heads and were about to say something. A disciple in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm opposite Jin Minghui also noticed it. He turned his head and looked at Xiaohua and the others. He said coldly, Disciples of the Myriad Thunder Valley, what a big show. You actually dare to make us wait here. Even if I was here, I'm afraid you wouldn't be like this. Cui Hongxun's face changed. He was not in a hurry to explain to Xiaohua in detail. He hurriedly flew a few feet forward and shouted. It turned out to be Martial Uncle Jin Shan of the Thousand Thunder Mountain. I'm really sorry. Don't call me Martial Uncle. You're now a disciple in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Just call me Senior Brother. The cultivator was a little arrogant, but also a little jealous as he waved his hand. Thousand Thunder Mountain? Xiaohua followed behind Cui Hongxun. He was a little puzzled. He had never heard of any Thousand Thunder Mountain. You flatter me, you flatter me. I've heard of Martial Uncle Jin's reputation as soon as I entered the Thunderclap Palace. Even though I've cultivated to the late stage of Foundation establishment, I'm still unable to reach Martial Uncle Jin's level. Cui Hongxun hurriedly smiled apologetically. Besides, once Martial Uncle comes to Sky Patrol City, when you return to Sky Thunder Peak, won't you be a Golden Core cultivator? It's better for me not to change my address. Cui Hongxun, you're not bad. Jin Shan was very happy. He smiled and said, You disciples from the cultivation families all know etiquette very well. You're much better than Yu Qian and the others. This old man thought that the first team of the Imperial Thunder sect had received some sect master's commendation order, and their tails were so high that they couldn't even see a group of old bones in their eyes. It turns out, this old man really misunderstood. Of course. Although Cui Hongxun didn't know what was going on, his words were watertight. This junior followed Senior Brother and the others to another place to do something, so I came back late. Please forgive me, Martial Uncle Jin. Oh, Martial Uncle Jin, this is Junior Senior Brother Xiaohua, and this is Senior Sister Diu Aiqiming from the Thunder Conversion Palace. I'm afraid Martial Uncle hasn't seen them before. After Cui Hongxun finished dealing with them, he gave Jin Minghui a look and introduced Xiaohua and Diu Aiqiming. Junior greets Martial Uncle Jin. When Diu Aiqiming heard Cui Hongxun's greeting, she naturally couldn't be rude, so she had to follow Cui Hongxun and call him Martial Uncle. Xiaohua frowned slightly and cupped his hands. Xiaohua greets Senior Brother Jin. Jin Shan was all smiles. After all, it was a very honorable thing to let a mid-stage Foundation establishment disciple of the Thunder Conversion Palace call him Martial Uncle. However, when Xiaohua's Senior Brother entered his ears, his face immediately changed. And Jin Shan nodded faintly. He looked up and down and sneered. You're really a rogue cultivator. Now you're only at the early stage of Foundation establishment. My martial nephew Wan Yuxiao, who entered the Thunder Conversion Palace at the same time as you, is already at the middle stage of Foundation establishment, but you're still at the early stage of Foundation establishment. AI, you have to consult martial nephew Cui more. Wan Yuxiao? Xiaohua was stunned, then immediately understood where Jin Shan's Thousand Thunder Mountain was. Wasn't it the place Jin Yu was in charge of? That Jin Yu who had some grudges with 10,000 Thunder Valley's helplessness, and some unclear entanglements? Yu Qian? Wasn't that Jin Yuqian who didn't know how to practice? Ha ha ha, senior brother Jin must be joking. How can this Xiao compare to Wan Yu Xiao? At most, this Xiao can only compare to Jin Yuqian. Oh right, I wonder if martial nephew Yuqian has reached foundation establishment? Xiao Hua didn't put Jin Shan in his eyes and asked with a smile. Cui Hongxun was originally afraid that Xiao Hua would be angry, but seeing him laugh, he felt relieved. As soon as Xiao Hua mentioned martial nephew Jin Yuqian, Jin Shan's face turned a little green, and he said coldly, "The matters of my Thousand Thunder Mountain don't need others to care about." Then, he turned to Cui Hongxun and said, "Cui Hongxun, take out your Imperial Thunder Sect's first team captain token." After that, he didn't explain any more and waited for Cui Hongxun to take out the token. Although Jin Shan was the master of Thunder Palace, they were now in Sky Patrol City, which was a Dao cultivator battle. How could the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team captain token be easily given to others? Hee, Junior dares not disobey the master's order. Cui Hongxun was still polite. However, I don't know why Martial Uncle Jin wants the token. Captain Cui. Jin Minghui, who was next to him, finally interrupted. Martial Uncle Jin and the others are here to participate in the battle. Their resting place is arranged here. The disciples of my Imperial Thunder Sect's first team will immediately follow Martial Uncle Jin's thunderbolt back to Sky Thunder Peak. Oh, Cui Hongxun understood that Jin Shan wanted his captain token to gain control of the pavilion's restriction. However, if Cui Hongxun handed over the control of the pavilion, they would immediately board the thunderboat. What about Xiao Hua? Xiao Hua would not return with the thunderboat. What about the disciples on duty? Cui Hongxun looked around and asked in a low voice. -8. Chapter 2466. Yes, Captain Cui. The disciple on duty has been waiting for a long time, but he didn't see Captain and Senior Brother Xiao, so he left first. Jin Minghui whispered. Hee, Martial Uncle Jin, please wait a moment. Cui Hongxun smiled apologetically. We're about to leave Sky Patrol City, but Senior Brother Xiao still wants to stay. We have to ask Senior Brother Xiao where he's resting before we hand over the token. Humph, a disciple in the later stage of Foundation Establishment sneered. What's a disciple in the early stage of Foundation Establishment staying here for? It's better to go back to Myriad Thunder Valley than to be a disciple on duty. Hee, Martial Uncle Jianfeng, you're exaggerating. Cui Hongxun obviously knew this disciple and smiled. Senior Brother Xiao is the most outstanding person in the first team of Imperial Thunder Sect. He's definitely a nightmare for sword cultivators if he stays on the battlefield. It's just a coincidence. You and I are both disciples of Myriad Thunder Valley, so there's no need to show off those superficial military exploits. Jin Jianfeng sneered. I, Jin, can bet with you that when we walk on the battlefield, none of our disciples will have less merits than you. Why do you have to flatter yourself? You'd better hand over the token quickly. We're tired and need to rest. Go back and have some peace. We still have to go to the battlefield. Martial uncles, please wait a moment. When it came to matters involving Xiao Hua, Cui Hongxun didn't dare to be negligent. Right now, he understood Xiao Hua's lethality even better than Xiang Yang. He bowed and said, Junior will go and find the disciple on duty. Let's arrange a place for my senior brother to cultivate first. Cui Hongxun, Jin Shan angrily said. According to the arrangement of the disciples on duty, this resting pavilion is a quiet room for 20 or so people. Even if you, the senior martial brother, were to stay here, it is absolutely impossible for you to stay here. What is the meaning of this? If other disciples of Thunder Palace come, it's fine. But I'm a master of Thunder Palace. How can I stay here and wait? Do you still want my face? Cui Hongxun's gaze swept across the area. Indeed, the lively scene on the left had already quieted down. Many disciples had already entered the pavilion, and those who had come out had already been arranged to familiarize themselves with the environment. Only Jinshan and the others had yet to enter the quiet room. However, even though Cui Hongxun looked troubled, he still shook his head and said, Senior Uncle Jin, don't worry. This junior will be back soon. It won't take long. Seeing Cui Hongshan's persistence, Xiaohua inwardly nodded. He felt that everything he had done for Cui Hongshan had been repaid. Since his junior brother was so protective of him, Xiaohua was too lazy to argue with Jinshan. The alchemy cave was much better than this place. Just as Xiaohua was about to speak, 2 initial stage foundation establishment disciples on duty flew over and said loudly, Where is the thunder-controlling sect's first squad? Cui Hongshan was overjoyed and hurriedly went over to greet them. He bowed and said, Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad captain, Cui Hongshan, greets the 2 junior brothers. Hee, please check the token, Captain Cui. The disciple in front said with a smile on his face. Captain Cui's outstanding military service is a role model for us disciples to follow. When we return to the Imperial Thunder Sect this time, we will definitely be rewarded by the sect master. Hee, I wouldn't dare. Cui Hongshan took out the token and handed it to the disciple. He said again, We are returning to the Sky Thunder Peak, but my senior brother still has to stay in the encampment. What's his arrangement? The disciple took Cui Hongshan's token and checked it before returning it to Cui Hongshan. He smiled apologetically and said, This disciple doesn't know. This disciple only received an order to invite the thunder-controlling sect's first squad of 6 people to board the Sky Thunder Boat No. 1 as the first meritorious service to return to the Sky Thunder Peak. The other disciples really don't know. Captain Cui, we have already been here once before. We can't wait any longer. The Thunderboat has been waiting outside Sky Patrol City for a long time. Not to mention that the sword cultivators will find out after a long time, there will be some trouble on the way back. It's not good to let the sect master wait on the Sky Thunder Peak. Another Foundation establishment disciple said with some envy. Yes, Captain Cui, the sect master has already said that he will personally welcome the first squad at the Sky Thunder Peak. This is the only time in this Tau cultivator battle. Cui Hongshan's face showed a burst of excitement, but then he calmed down. The first squad of the thunder-controlling sect had made great contributions, but to put it bluntly, it was all Xiaohua's credit. He didn't deserve such generous treatment. Moreover, Cui Hongshan understood that Master Qianlazy's action was not only because of the first squad's contribution, but also because of Tu Hong, right? Hee, junior brother Cui, Xiaohua said with a smile. You can go and give the restriction on the token to Jinshan and the others. Now that you are all leaving, I'm too lazy to stay with them. Well, seeing something reminds me of someone is the most hurtful. This? Cui Hongshan shook his head slightly. Even if I hand over the restriction on the token, I should let them arrange a place for senior brother to rest first, right? I'm afraid that they will forget about senior brother. Hee, that's actually possible. Xiaohua realized Cui Hongshan's thoughtfulness and said with a smile. However, if they arrange it, I'm afraid they will arrange it with someone else. Rather than that, I might as well go to the pill refining cave. Yes, I understand. Cui Hongshan nodded. Senior brother is a person who likes to be free. I won't lower myself to their level. Hee. Xiaohua laughed and clapped his hand. He was going to take out his storage pouch, but after thinking for a moment, he transmitted his voice to Cui Hongshan, who was handing over the token to Jinshan. I have some things here, but it's not convenient for you to bring them back to the Myriad Thunder Valley. Tell Master and Senior Brother to wait until after the battle to make them happy. Don't worry, it's definitely something they have never seen before. Cui Hongshan's face remained calm and collected. After he finished with Jinshan and the others no longer looked at Cui Hongshan. They turned around and opened the restriction on the pavilion. One by one, they entered and sealed the restriction. Watching Jinshan and the others enter the restriction, Cui Hongshan turned his head and said with a smile, Senior Brother Xiao, I'm going back. You have to take care of yourself. Don't worry. Senior Brother Cui, you should worry about our way back first. Zhen Minghui said with jealousy. You reached the middle stage of Foundation establishment without anyone noticing, but we are still in the early stage of Foundation establishment. Jin Mingwei, yes, not only Jin Mingwei, but even Baisu Valley and the others also wished they were disciples of the myriad Thunder Valley. Although they couldn't be sure that Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming reaching the middle stage of foundation establishment was definitely Xiaohua's doing, it was obvious that although Xiaohua went out, the two came back directly at the middle stage of foundation establishment after only 10 days. Others might believe it if they said it had nothing to do with Xiaohua, but they, who had seen Xiaohua's bravery, absolutely wouldn't believe it. They only believed that if they were disciples of the myriad Thunder Valley, they might have already reached the middle stage of foundation establishment by now. Hee, it's all a chance, all a chance. Cui Hongshan said with a smile. Senior brother Minghui is also at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Sooner or later, he will reach the middle stage of foundation establishment. Ah, maybe. Jin Minghui replied, but his face revealed a bleak expression. Yes, although the difference between the middle stage of foundation establishment and the early stage of foundation establishment wasn't as big as the difference between the peak stage of foundation establishment and the early stage of foundation establishment, it definitely wasn't as simple as Cui Hongshan said it was. Especially these few dumb birds who were more frustrated in cultivation. They didn't make any progress in fighting, but instead, after being unconscious for several years, their cultivation suddenly improved. Even they themselves couldn't make sense of it. And once they returned to Sky Thunder Peak, who knew what kind of scene they would be cultivating? Fellow senior brothers, let's leave quickly. The two disciples on duty urged again. Let's go, this Xiao will send you off. Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. Thank you, senior brother. Everyone respectfully addressed him as senior brother. Zhenhua and the others even called him martial uncle. The two disciples on duty were really puzzled. Xiaohua's cultivation seemed to be considered low among the early stage of foundation establishment. Please. Although the two disciples on duty were surprised, they were still respectful to Cui Hongshan and the others. However, just as they were about to fly away, a few more disciples flew over. Everyone looked over and saw that it was a disciple on duty who led Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao in. Li Zongbao's reputation was really too great. Not only was the disciple on duty abnormally respectful, but the two foundation establishment disciples leading Cui Hongshan and the others were also surprised when they saw Xiaohua fly towards them. They even stopped in midair and bowed. Greetings, senior brother Li Zongbao. May I know why senior brother has come to my Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment? Cui Hongshan and the others naturally knew why Li Zongbao came, but they also bowed and saluted. Li Zongbao nodded indifferently at the disciple on duty, but he looked at Cui Hongshan with some surprise and said, Cui Hongshan, you're also at the middle stage of foundation establishment? Li Zongbao used the word, actually, rather casually, as if a senior was giving pointers to a junior. Cui Hongshan didn't feel anything wrong in his heart, and hurriedly said with a smile. This disciple had some opportunities, but I'd barely reached the middle stage of foundation establishment. I'm a little ashamed to say this. And Li Zongbao seemed to use some kind of magic to look at Cui Hongshan for a moment, and his eyes flashed with faint colors. He immediately nodded and said, Your foundation is not bad. Previously, I felt that you rushing into the middle stage of foundation establishment might be disadvantageous to your future cultivation, but it seems that I was overthinking it. Li Zongbao didn't say anything else and looked Dui Qiming up and down. He said, Is this Dui Qiming? This servant greets senior brother Li Zongbao. Dui Qiming's face was slightly red. She naturally knew why Li Zongbao knew about her, and she bowed again. And Li Zongbao nodded. I heard that you have a better choice. However, it's really good to see you following Cui Hongshan back to the sect. I can only say that your choice is very wise. Dui Qiming lightly bit her lips, and her face flushed red again. She smiled apologetically and said, This servant is Cui Hongshan's partner. Even if it's thousands of years, this servant must stay by Cui Hongshan's side. Good. Li Zongbao clapped his hands and took out a message talisman. He handed it to Dui Qiming and said proudly, This is my message talisman. Just based on what you said, this servant will agree to help you with one thing. If you have any difficulties, feel free to look for me. -8. Chapter 2467. Dui Qiming's face lit up with joy. She reached out to receive it and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Senior Brotherly. Senior Brotherly is generous. Xiaohua smiled when he saw Li Zongbao looking at him. What happened so quickly? Why don't you wait until I send you guys to the Thunder Ship? It's urgent. You don't have to send us off, Li Zongbao said faintly. I've received news that guy is near Flowing Ice Valley. You and I should hurry over. Senior Brotherly, that's not necessary. Xiaohua felt a little bored. Why don't you follow me to Sky Patrol City? After we send Junior Brother Chui and the others off, we can set off immediately. No! Li Zongbao's face darkened and he did not agree. Xiaohua frowned, but his heart was moved. He knew that Li Zongbao wasn't such an unreasonable person. There must be some reason for his actions, so he didn't delay and said to Chui Hongshan and the others, Since that's the case, this Sha won't send you off. Return to Sky Thunder Peak and cultivate well. After the battle, this Sha will return to Sky Thunder Peak to look for you. Yes, Senior Brotherly. We have our own arrangements. Chui Hongshan was even more mindful of the Seven Skills sect. He quickly bowed and said, Senior Brotherly, hurry and follow Senior Brotherly. All right, Xiaohua cupped his hands and beckoned. Senior Brotherly, let's go. Unfortunately, just as he led Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao away, dozens of Sky Patrol City's disciples and a few Seven Skills Sect's disciples rushed over from the entrance of the Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment. In front of them was a patrolling disciple from the Imperial Thunder Sect who was leading the way with an unhappy expression. That's the guy. He's Xiaohua. Li Zongbao's white hair and red Taoist robe were really eye-catching. The Seven Skills Sect's disciple had just flown over when his gaze landed on Xiaohua's face. Following the disciple's shout, the dozens of Sky Patrol City's disciples immediately surrounded Xiaohua and the others. It's too late. Li Zongbao's expression changed slightly. He clapped his hand and took out the conference hall token. He said coldly, I have the conference hall token. Who dares to stop me? I'll, Senior Li. The Seven Possibilities Sect disciple hurriedly cupped his fists and said, This disciple didn't know that Senior Marshal Brotherly was here. This disciple apologizes to Senior Marshal Brotherly. The other Seven Skills Sect disciples also hurriedly bowed in greeting. Although Li Zongbao wanted to get away, he was not Zhang Qi Xiao or Qian Diheng. He was not the arrogant and domineering type. Seeing the Seven Skills Sect's disciples' respectful attitude, he could only frown and ask, What is the matter? I'm about to bring my 2 junior brothers to Flowing Ice Valley to kill Qin Jian. How dare you block my battle achievements? Senior Brotherly, don't be angry. That Seven Skills Sect disciple hastily smiled apologetically. This disciple absolutely does not dare to obstruct Senior Marshal Brother Li's battle achievements. This disciple is only following orders from the Assembly Hall to invite Junior Marshal Brother Xiaohua to the Assembly Hall. It's fine as long as Junior Marshal Brother Xiao goes, Senior Marshal Brotherly doesn't need to go. Of course. Junior Brother Xiao is my good friend, and we are used to working together. He is the one who can kill Qin Jian. Without Junior Brother Xiao, wouldn't I be sending myself to my death? Li Zongbao waved his hand and said, Don't stand in the way. The Seven Skills Sect disciple did not expect Li Zongbao to be here and was somewhat at a loss. Move aside. Li Zongbao glanced at the surrounding Sky Patrol City disciples and said coldly, Don't force me to take out my immortal piercing whip. Senior Marshal Brotherly. The Sky Patrol City disciples who blocked Li Zongbao's path also cried out miserably. Please don't make things difficult for this lowly one. This lowly one was sent to invite Junior Marshal Brother Xiao. I know nothing else. Are you going to move aside or not? Li Zongbao did not say much and asked coldly. Xiaohua, who was watching from the side, felt strange. He did not understand why Li Zongbao was making such a big fuss. Hence, he whispered. Senior Marshal Brotherly, isn't it just going to the assembly hall? Is there a need for this? You dare to go to the assembly hall? Li Zongbao looked at him from head to toe and was also puzzled. Why wouldn't I dare to go? Xiao Hua glanced at the Seven Skills Sect disciple. At most, the Seven Skills Sect will ask for the flowing cloud flying ship. However, it's only been a few days and they're already back? At this moment, Xiao Mao cupped his hands and said, Senior Marshal Brother, I wonder why Senior Marshal Brother wants to go to the assembly hall. If you can explain it clearly, perhaps it will be easier. The Seven Skills Sect disciples looked at each other bitterly and whispered. What else can it be? Of course it's that thing. Are you going to the assembly hall? Li Zongbao asked again. Go! Xiao Hua waved his hand. This matter will come sooner or later. I didn't expect it to come so soon. There are many things you didn't expect, Li Zongbao said with a double meaning. Senior Marshal Brotherly, what do you mean? Xiao Hua was stunned. Li Zongbao did not say much. He just waved his hand and said indifferently, If you want to go, then go. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples had long been curious. Many of them were even watching from the side. Cui Hongshan and the others were even more anxious. Xiao Hua glanced at them and said with a smile, Junior Marshal Brother, you can go by yourself. It's no big deal. At worst, you can just return the flowing cloud flying ship to them. Cui Hongshan knew that Xiao Hua was stingy, and was afraid that he would not return it. Now that he heard Xiao Hua agree, he was relieved and said, Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, although the flowing cloud flying ship is a good thing, it doesn't belong to our Imperial Thunder Sect. You can enjoy it in your hands, but it's also troublesome. Why don't you return it to them? When I have time, I'll see if there are any other flying magic tools. Senior Marshal Brother obtained a lot of flying swords from the battlefield. I should be able to exchange them for one. And I know. You can go without worry. Xiao Hua waved his hand and flew up. Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao followed closely and headed out of the encampment. The Seven Skills Sect disciples and dozens of Sky Patrol City disciples did not dare to be negligent. They surrounded the encampment as if to protect and restrain them. Behind them, many disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect were left wondering and whispering. The meeting hall of the Yanxi residence was still the same as before. The only difference was that the praying mat Tu Hong was sitting on was now empty. However, looking at the expressions of the Dao sect cultivators, none of them were abnormal. It was as if the praying mat being empty was normal. It was something they were used to. If it was not empty, they would not be used to it. Xiao Hua followed the Seven Possibilities Sect disciple into the conference hall. When he saw the golden core cultivator wearing a navy blue Taoist robe sitting at the head of the table, his heart skipped a beat. Not good, the person on duty today was actually Seven Possibilities Sect's Wan Yi. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect greets Marshal Uncle Wang. The Seven Skills Sect disciples bowed and said, Wan Yi saw Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao appear behind Xiao Hua and frown. He waved his hand and said, You can leave now. Yes. After the Seven Skills Sect disciples left, Wan Yi looked at Li Zongbao and said, Marshal Nephew Li Zongbao, why are you here? No reason. Li Zongbao bowed and said, I was about to bring Junior Marshal Brother Xiao to Flowing Ice Valley when I was surrounded by dozens of Sky Patrol city guards and several disciples of your sect. We thought it was a sword cultivator in disguise and almost attacked. If Junior Marshal Brother Xiao did not stop us. What? Zongbao, did someone attack us in Sky Patrol City? Han Zhao immediately said coldly. Which disciple is so bold? Humph, they wanted to attack us. Li Zongbao also said coldly. Now that the Sky Patrol City is in a state of panic, everyone is under attack. I also received the news and wanted to kill Qin Jian to avenge Senior Tu Hong, but someone was blind enough to block my path. Wan Yi originally wanted Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao to leave first, but after hearing Li Zongbao's words, he was a little embarrassed and angry. He had no reason to let them leave. If he forcefully sent them out, it would make him look guilty. Li Zongbao. Wan Yi also stopped being amiable and said faintly, My 7 skills sect's disciples work together with the Sky Patrol City's city guards to invite Imperial Thunder Sect's Xiaohua to the conference hall for questioning. There were many people, so we were worried that something might happen in the Sky Patrol City and Xiaohua's life might be in danger. That's why we sent many people. You've misunderstood the good intentions of the meeting hall. And I understand. Li Zongbao nodded. They didn't attack us, but I don't understand. Why can't they wait until we return from Flowing Ice Valley? Qinjian is near Flowing Ice Valley now if… Li Zongbao. Wan Yi said lightly. Qinjian is not in Flowing Ice Valley now, it's useless even if you go. That's strange, how does Marshal Uncle Wang know that Qinjian is not in Flowing Ice Valley? Did he go back to Sky Patrol City? Li Zongbao's behavior today was a little overboard. He actually questioned a Golden Core master in front of everyone, and his words were vaguely sarcastic. Wan Yi was a little embarrassed and angry. He glared at Li Zongbao and said, Li Zongbao, this is the meeting hall of Yanxi Prefecture. You don't have the right to question my meeting hall. Cough cough Zongbao, hurry up and apologize to Marshal Uncle Wan Yi. Heng Zhao coughed and scolded. Yes, I know my mistake. I didn't know that Marshal Uncle Wan Yi could confirm Qinjian's whereabouts. I've learned my lesson. Li Zongbao bowed and said. Ha ha ha, the Golden Core cultivators of Lian country laughed. Li Zongbao. If you say another word, I'll exercise my right to be on duty. Wan Yi was embarrassed and angry. He pointed his finger and said. Sure enough, Li Zongbao straightened his back and stood straight. He didn't say a word. Not even a word to admit defeat. Although the Golden Core cultivators of Lian country didn't laugh, they couldn't help but laugh. Xiaohua, do you know why the meeting hall called you here? Wan Yi turned his head and said coldly to Xiaohua. He couldn't do anything to Li Zongbao, but it was no problem to deal with Xiaohua. This? How can I know? Xiaohua said blankly. But the meeting hall is where the masters are in charge, not where the experts are. I have nothing to be afraid of. Pfft. The others didn't say anything, but Heng Zhu couldn't help but laugh out loud. He knew very well what Wan Yi was planning, and Xiaohua obviously knew what was going on. He even compared the conference hall with a strong person in front of everyone. It was even worse than Li Zongbao's words just now. He now somewhat understood why his precious disciple was so protective of Xiaohua. -8. Chapter 2468. Qianmo, you say it yourself. Wan Yi coldly glanced at Qianmo and said. If it was Heng, he would have refuted. It's not my turn to be on duty today. Fellow Taoist Wang, please make the decision. But this was Qianmo. Qianmo raised his head and looked at Xiaohua, asking. Xiaohua, do you have a 7-skill sex flowing cloud airship? If you took it from a sword cultivator, you still have to return it to the 7 skills sect. After all, this airship belongs to the 7 skills sect. My Imperial Thunder sect is a large sect in the country of Xi. We can't do anything that goes against the agreement of the war. Hearing Qianmo mention 7 possibilities sex flowing cloud flying boat, Xiaohua felt a little angry. However, after thinking for a while, Xiaohua swallowed his anger and said, Let Marshal Uncle Qian know, disciple did indeed steal a flying boat from a sword cultivator. However, I don't know if it belongs to 7 possibilities sect. As you know, this disciple is ignorant and inexperienced. I've never seen the 7 skills sex flowing cloud flying boat, but I've seen their flowing cloud flying boat outside the teleportation formation in Sky Patrol City 10 days ago. It looks similar, but it might not be their flowing cloud flying boat. Humph, still trying to argue. Wan Yi coldly said. In the country of Xi, other than our 7 skills sex flowing cloud airship, what other flying magic tools do they have? That's right. Marshal Nephew Xiao, I remember you were in the meeting hall 10 days ago. You even took out the things in your storage pouch. Why didn't I see this flowing cloud airship? Li Qingxiu also said with interest. Moreover, your cultivation is only close to the middle stage of foundation establishment. How did you manage to take a flying ship from a sword cultivator? Xiaohua had already thought of a plan. He smiled and said, Disciple was lucky. The one I killed was the injured sword cultivator. Moreover, the flying boat was taken away by Senior Brotherly last time. It's in his storage bag, not mine. Is that so? Martial Nephew Li? Wan Yi turned and asked. Li Zongbao looked at him calmly, blinked his eyes, and didn't say a word. Martial Nephew Li? Wan Yi asked again. I'm asking you. Fellow Taoist Wang. Are you kidding me? First, you want my disciple to shut up and not say a single word. Then, you want to interrogate him. What do you want my disciple to do? Heng Ju asked impolitely. Wan Yechi glanced at Li Zongbao from the corner of his eyes and stopped asking. Everyone knew that Li Zongbao would only give a one-word answer. How about this, Xiaohua? Take out that flying boat and let us take a look. If it belongs to the Qiqiao sect, we'll return it to them. You taking back the flowing cloud flying boat is also a great merit. This old man will report this to the meeting hall and record this merit. When we return to Sky Thunder Peak, we'll reward you. Qian Mo looked left and right and laughed. My Imperial Thunder sect is a big sect after all. We need to be magnanimous. Why should we be at odds with the Seven Skills sect, which is also a cultivation sect in the country of Shi, over a small flying boat? And that flying boat? Needless to say, you can't control it yourself, and you still need Martial Nephew Zongbao to control it. You'd better concentrate on raising your cultivation to the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm before you think about these things. Xiaohua was speechless. However, after looking at Qian Mo for a moment, a strange smile appeared on his face. He clapped his hands and took out the flowing cloud flying ship. Ha ha, this old man won't say any more. Wan Ye's gaze fell on the flowing cloud flying ship and he laughed. Facts speak louder than words. Isn't this my Seven Skills sect's flowing cloud flying ship? Qian Mo, your Imperial Thunder sect's teaching methods are still lacking. My Imperial Thunder sect's teaching methods can't sway fellow Taoist Wang's tongue. Qian Mo was a bit embarrassed and angry. He turned his head and scolded Xiaohua. You clearly know that this thing belongs to the Seven Skills sect. What are you doing with it? You've really thrown away the face of my Imperial Thunder sect. Xiaohua didn't get angry when he heard this. He smiled and said, This disciple feels very strange. This flying boat has always been used by me and Senior Martial Brotherly. This disciple is ignorant and inexperienced, so of course I wouldn't know that this flying boat is the Seven Skills sect's flowing cloud flying ship. Which teacher saw this disciple driving this flying boat? Humph, they've already reported it to the meeting hall. You're still dreaming. Qian Mo had a look of disappointment on his face. AI, if you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Xiaohua, at this point, what are you still thinking? Do you still want to keep this thing for yourself? Wan Yi sneered. If it weren't for the return of my Seven Skills sect's disciple, who would have known that a meritorious member of the Imperial Thunder sect would be so filthy in private? You've really thrown away the face of my Shi nation. The Seven Skills sect's disciples have returned? Xiaohua rubbed his nose and said with interest. It seems, this disciple met your sect's disciples outside Sky Patrol City for less than 10 days. It shouldn't have been more than 20 days and they've already returned? They're really powerful. Humph, the flowing cloud flying ship is right in front of you. What are you still trying to argue about? Wan Yi said angrily. This old man will take this thing back to my Seven Skills sect and punish you for secretly keeping a flying ship for war. Fellow Taoist Wang, although Xiaohua secretly kept the flying ship, he didn't even know it was the flowing cloud flying ship. Moreover, he also took the flying ship from the sword cultivator. It's considered a meritorious service. How can you punish him? Qian Mo raised his voice. I hope fellow Taoists can consider the various factors. My Imperial Thunder sect will keep a close eye on this matter. Humph, he didn't know that this was my Seven Skills sect's flowing cloud flying ship? Wan Yi sneered. Just now, this old man received an inquiry from my sect's disciple. This old man had some suspicions as to where Xiaohua's flowing cloud flying ship came from. After this old man carefully investigated, this old man suspects that the flying ship in his hands is the same flying ship that my 7 skills sect's disciples used to travel to Rooster Crow Mountain. This old man even has suspicions about the Imperial Thunder sect's first squad's battle record. Perhaps they didn't even go to Rooster Crow Mountain. Instead, after my 7 skills sect's disciples escaped from Rooster Crow Mountain, they ambushed and killed my 7 skills sect's disciples. After receiving the news and obtaining the flowing cloud flying ship, they came to the meeting hall to claim the reward. The ones who should be rewarded should be my 7 skills sect's disciples. Cough, cough. The utmost happiness Sex Heng Zhao coughed twice and waved his hand. Fellow Taoist Wang, your 7 skills sect's disciples were ambushed by sword cultivators. Our meeting hall knows that your 7 skills sect paid an extremely high price and suffered many losses. These disciples asked the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples for their private possession of a flying ship. Since you lack a flying ship, you can't claim the reward. We didn't say anything about it, and you can just verify the identity of the flying ship and accept it into your 7 skills sect. The Battle of Rooster Crow Mountain happened more than a few years ago. Do you think it's interesting to bring it up again? The Tai Ching sect's De Sun also laughed heartily. Isn't that so? Your 7 skills sect's disciples had one less flying ship to carry a few fewer disciples. With a few fewer disciples, your flying ship slowed down by half a minute. With that, you fell into a sword cultivator's ambush. Falling into a sword cultivator's ambush, your 7 skills sect lost several hundred disciples. With your 7 skills sect lost several hundred disciples, my Dao sect lost the Battle of Golden Core Cultivators. With my Dao sect's cultivators losing the Battle of Golden Core Cultivators, my Dao sect's cultivators were utterly defeated in the Battle of Sword Dao. With my Dao sect's cultivators defeated, the sword cultivators invaded and occupied the entire Dawn Rain continent. With my Dawn Rain continent occupied by the sword cultivators, my Dao sect was annihilated. Fellow Taoist De Sun, when did this old man say that? Wan Yi was furious. Ha ha ha, didn't your 7 skills sect's disciples all say the same thing? Didn't they all say that they accidentally fell into the ambush because they lacked a flying ship? De Sun laughed again. Moreover, from what he said, it seems that Xiaohua isn't the only one who has a flying ship. Our other sects and clans all have your 7 skills sect's flying ships, right? Haha, isn't that so? Heng Zhao also laughed in response. There's no point in saying anything else. Li Qingshu waved his hand. Let's return this flying ship to the 7 skills sect. It won't be too late for us to discuss Xiaohua's crimes later. This old man still has to make a solemn statement. This item was obtained by Xiaohua as a sword cultivator. Not only is he not guilty, but he has also performed meritorious deeds. Qian Mo said righteously. This old man isn't the only one paying attention to this matter. My Imperial Thunder sect's tens of thousands of disciples are also paying attention to this matter. Humph. Wan Yi waved his hand and was about to put away the flying ship when Xiaohua laughed. Marshal Uncle Wang, how could you tell at a glance that this is the 7 skills sect's flying ship? Why doesn't this junior look like it? Oh? Didn't you say that you don't recognize my 7 skills sect's flying ship? Wan Yi stopped and said coldly. Didn't this junior already see your sect's flying ship before entering Sky Patrol City? Xiaohua asked curiously. Didn't the disciple who came to complain say anything? Humph, this old man naturally has his reasons for saying that this is my 7 skills sect's flowing cloud flying ship. Wan Yi pointed at the flying ship and said, Every flying ship of my 7 skills sect has a serial number. Furthermore, it's hidden within the flying ship. Outsiders can't know about it. Oh? Xiaohua asked curiously. After this junior obtained this flying ship, I used my divine sense to examine it for a long time, but I didn't find anything strange. At this point, however, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. That's right. You need to know how to control the Stream Cloud shuttlecraft. That jade slip clearly states that it's the Stream Cloud shuttlecraft from the Seven Skills sect. However, Wang Yi clearly didn't take this matter to heart. Instead, he said confidently, how could your divine sense discover the secret of my Seven Skills sect's flowing cloud flying ship? This old man will point it out right now and convince you. Wait, Xiaohua said hurriedly. Senior's divine sense is extremely mysterious. How would this junior know if you tampered with the flying ship? Do I need to go that far? Wang Yi said disdainfully. He waved his hand and the flowing cloud flying ship flew back to his hand. How about this? Let this old man take a look. Hun waved his hand and the flowing cloud flying ship stopped in midair. Hun, how do you know the secret of my Seven Skills sect's flying ship? Wang Yi sneered. Hee, what kind of secret could there be on the Dawn Rain continent? Hun Hing didn't hide anything. This old man occasionally knows a bit. It's not a big deal, right? He then pointed with his hand and said with a smile. Fellow Gold Core cultivators here, how many of you don't know? Forget it, don't argue. Fellow Taoist Hun Ming's beloved disciple is Li Zongbao. He's somewhat grateful to Xiaohua, so fellow Taoist Hun Ming should avoid arousing suspicion. Da Sun laughed brightly and stood up. This old man will help you take a look so that Xiaohua won't worry. -8. Chapter 2469. Alright, Wang Yi glanced at Da Sun and withdrew his hand. The flying boat naturally flew into Da Sun's hand. Da Sun clapped his hand and a palm-sized mirror flew out of his storage bag. He then flicked his horsetail whisk and a misty light shot out from the mirror and landed on the flying boat. As the light entered the boat, the flowing cloud flying boat gradually became transparent. Everyone was smiling as their gazes followed the light. However, when the misty light stopped, Da Sun exclaimed, Strange. What's wrong? Wang Yi didn't want to watch. After all, this was his own secret. Hearing Da Sun's surprise, he asked, it's very strange. This flying boat might not belong to the Seven Skills sect. Da Sun flicked his horsetail whisk and the mirror landed in his hand. He then threw the flowing cloud flying boat towards Wang Yi. Wang Yi's expression was a bit awkward. He didn't rush to catch the flying boat as it landed in front of him. Instead, he took out a fist-sized black ball from his storage bag. This ball wasn't a regular circle. The two ends protruded slightly and there was a long groove in the middle. Wang Yi activated his spiritual power and the ball slowly rotated. A ray of pure blue light shot out from the groove and shone on a certain part of the flying boat. However, the moment the light shone, the flying boat didn't change at all. The number that Wang Yi expected didn't appear. Wang Yi's expression became even more strange. How is it? Fellow Taoist Wang, is this your Seven Skills sect's flying boat? Hun Ming asked. Even if the imprint on the boat is damaged, it only means that it was discovered by sword cultivators. They were afraid that our Tao sect cultivators would follow them, so they erased it. It doesn't mean that this isn't my Seven Skills sect's flying boat. Wang Yi saw that the place he was most confident in had a flaw. He was very clear that this imprint couldn't be detected by spiritual sense. Even if one didn't have the spiritual sense of a late Golden Core stage cultivator, or even a nascent soul stage cultivator, it wouldn't be easy to erase it. How could this flying boat be gone? With that, Wang Yi clapped his hand again and another small flying boat that looked exactly the same appeared in the air. If any fellow Taoist can point out the difference between these two flying boats, then this old man will admit that this flying boat doesn't belong to my Seven Possibilities sect. Wang Yi proudly said as he pointed his finger. Of course, these two flying boats were originally the same, so how could there be any differences? Everyone was silent. At this time, Xiaohua bowed and said, From the outside, the two flying boats are naturally the same, but I'm afraid the place Marshal Uncle Wang was looking for is somewhat different. Ha, that's right. Wang Yi, isn't that the difference between the two flying boats? It looks like this flying boat doesn't belong to your Seven Possibilities sect. Hun was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. Wang Yi was also stunned. He realized that there was a flaw in his words. His face was a little gloomy as he said coldly, "This old man is talking about the two flying boats apart from the marks. The imprint must have been discovered and erased by the sword cultivator, but that doesn't mean it's not our 7 skills sex flying boat." "But Martial Uncle Wang is wrong again," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Didn't your noble sect leave a mark on the flying boat to identify it? If there's no mark, doesn't that mean this flying boat doesn't belong to your noble sect? Since this flying boat doesn't belong to your noble sect, what right does Martial Uncle Wang have to take it from this disciple's hands? Isn't that the same as a scissor expert? Since this flying boat doesn't belong to your noble sect, what right does Martial Uncle Wang have to punish this disciple for the crime of privately possessing a flying boat for battle? Xiaohua, this is the conference hall. You're disrespecting your teacher, that's already a serious crime." Wan Yi really had a headache as he scolded Xiaohua. This flying boat incident. To be honest, he was forced to do something beyond his ability. The 7 skills sect disciples fell into a sword cultivator's ambush and suffered great losses. The surviving disciples returned to Sky Patrol City to report this matter. In their anger, they told Wan Yi about Xiaohua's private possession of the flowing cloud flying boat. Although their tone wasn't as serious as the Sun's, there was still a great deal of innuendo. Those disciples originally wanted to use this opportunity to vent their anger and attract attention. As for Wan Yi, he didn't put Xiaohua's matter in his eyes. Since he was on duty today, he naturally wouldn't give up the opportunity to beat the Imperial Thunder sect. Thus, he invited Xiaohua over. But he didn't expect that it would be such a situation. He was somewhat unable to control it. "Martial Uncle Wang, your noble sect's disciple slandered this junior for privately possessing a flying boat. Isn't that a serious crime?" Xiaohua sneered. "If you want to punish me, then please punish your noble sect's disciple first. Then, you can talk about this junior's crime of disrespect." "Fellow Taoist Qianmo." Wan Yi took a deep breath and lightly said, "Your Imperial Thunder sect boasts of being one of the great sects of my Shi country. How can you disturb the affairs of the great sects of Shi country in the conference hall? This kind of nonsense is really throwing away the face of my Shi country's cultivator sects. Hee, Martial Uncle Wang, don't mention my Imperial Thunder sect's Martial Uncle Qian." Xiaohua laughed again. "Today's conference hall is the conference hall of my Dao sect's 3 countries. When did it become the conference hall of Shi country? This junior has protected the face of Shi country. Shouldn't I protect the faces of the masters of Ming country and Lian country? You're being unreasonable." Wan Ye's eyes flashed with a sharp light as he coldly said, "This flying boat belongs to my Qiqiao sect. Seeing that you're the hero of my Dao sect's great war, this old man won't pursue your crime of taking it without permission. You can leave now." Seeing Wan Yi being so rude and not mentioning any more reasons, Xiaohua's heart was filled with anger and helplessness. He could only look at Qianmo. Qianmo didn't say anything after that. At this moment, he smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Wan Yi, what the junior from my humble sect said is very reasonable. This is a great war between cultivators. It's not only a matter of my Shi country, but also a matter of Ming country, Lian country, and Shi country. It's also a matter of dozens of our cultivator sections. Our goal is the sword cultivators of Huan country. However, we can't sacrifice our righteousness for such a small matter. In this old man's opinion, we might as well seek common ground while reserving our differences. We should obey the bigger picture and prioritize the bigger picture. As for the matter of the flowing cloud flying boat, we might as well leave it to the juniors to deal with. We'll deal with it after the war. What do you think?" "What do I think?" Wan Yi said coldly. "I don't think so. This flying boat belongs to my 7 skills sect. If my 7 skills sect doesn't take it, then let's see who dares to take it." Humph. At this moment, a cold snort came from Li Zongbao's mouth. He said coldly to Xiaohua, "Junior brother Xiao, you've really disappointed me. Do you remember that when I gave you this flying boat, I told you that the origin of this flying boat is unknown? You can't protect it by yourself. Do you see it now? Do you still want to keep it for yourself?" Sigh. Xiaohua sighed. He didn't hide his deep disappointment. He cupped his hands and said, Junior brother knows his mistake. Senior brotherly, please take back this flying boat. What? Wang Yi was slightly stunned. Martial Uncle Wang, I won't hide it from Martial Uncle. This flying boat was snatched from the hands of a sword cultivator. Li Zongbao said generously. Everything Xiaohua said is true. However, how could he have the strength to snatch this flying boat from the hands of a sword cultivator? It was all Junior's doing. Martial nephew Zongbao, aren't you joking? Wang Yi said with a smile. This flying boat clearly belongs to Xiaohua. From the beginning to the end, he never said that it was related to Martial nephew. Now that Martial nephew has jumped out, aren't you treating us like monkeys? Martial Uncle Wang, you haven't even thought about it. Junior has already explained it clearly. What is Xiaohua's cultivation? How could he snatch this flying boat from the hands of a sword cultivator? Li Zongbao said bluntly and sincerely. This guy wanted to snatch this flying boat from Junior's hands, so he had no choice but to hold on. Yes, Junior has already reported this matter to Master. Hee, that's right. Hanju faintly said. That's why this old man wanted to see if this flying boat belonged to the Seven Possibilities sect. If it did, then this old man wouldn't say a word. However, if it didn't belong to the Seven Possibilities sect, then this old man would have to speak. Now that this matter is clear, this flying boat belongs to my Seven Possibilities sect. Even if fellow Taoist Hengming says it belongs to him, I'm afraid I can't let it go. Hee, that's troublesome. Li Zongbao's expression didn't change, but he said with a fake smile, Junior doesn't like it when others take my things for no reason. If others take one of my things, I'll take 10 of their things. Moreover, I can't guarantee that something will happen in Sky Patrol City and those who took my things will lose their lives. Li Zongbao. Wang Yi coldly interrupted Li Zongbao. Are you threatening me? I'm not. Li Zongbao said calmly. Martial Uncle Wang, you're a golden core stage elder. How could I dare to threaten you? I'm just talking about my bad habits. If any of the Seven Possibilities sect's disciples died in this flying boat, don't blame me for putting the blame on my Utopia faction. What else could Li Zongbao's words be other than a threat? Wang Yi was so angry that his nose was crooked. He really wanted to slap Li Zongbao to death on the spot. Zongbao, how could you talk to Martial Uncle Wang like that? Hengming scolded Li Zongbao. Yes, Junior knows his mistake. Li Zongbao hurriedly replied respectfully, as if he really knew his mistake. Hengming looked at the flying boat and said with a smile, How about this, fellow cultivator Wang? Let's not talk about the ownership of this flying boat for now. Let's do as fellow cultivator Qian Mo of the Imperial Thunder sect said and leave it to the younger generation to settle. Since my disciple wants to use the flying boat, he must have his own use for it. I also support his decision. I have an idea. Let my disciple rent the flying boat for 99 years. If the ownership of the flying boat can be decided after the war, then it will belong to the Seven Skills sect. For the rest of the time, the Utopia faction will pay with spirit stones. If the flying boat belongs to my Utopia faction, then I won't have to pay the spirit stones. What if the ownership of the flying boat can't be decided and 99 years is up? Da Sun asked curiously. Then what should we do? Hengming rolled his eyes and said, Then we'll leave it to the next generation to settle. We'll rent it for another 99 years. -8. Chapter 2470. Haha, good idea. Da Sun clapped his hands and said to Wang Yi, What fellow cultivator Hengming said is right, I support it. Not only can it settle today's matter, but it can also make full use of the flying boat. Not bad, not bad. Yes, we agree as well. Everyone else chimed in. This? Wang Yi was extremely annoyed, but he really didn't have any evidence. The flowing cloud flying boat was obviously the flowing cloud flying boat of the Seven Skills sect. Why did he have to find some bullshit evidence? Alas, forget it. Wang Yi also knew that this was a rare way out. He sighed in his heart, and forced a smile on his face. He nodded and said, "Yes, if it were any other time, I would never give in. But fellow cultivator Qianmo said it well. Now is the time when all the Taoist sects are working together. There is no room for any dirty tricks. I will temporarily rent this flying boat to the Utopia faction. I hope that nephew Zongbao can use this flying boat to kill more sword cultivators." "I understand." Li Zongbao bowed and said, "Killing sword cultivators is my mission in the Sky Patrol City. I will not let you down." "Damn it, how did it become a rental?" Xiao Hua was secretly anxious. There is an essential difference between renting and owning one's own things. However, seeing that Li Zongbao didn't speak, and Hing Ming, who defended Li Zongbao, also didn't speak, Xiao Hua looked at the calm and composed Qianmo of the Imperial Thunder sect and didn't dare to speak again. Without support, even someone as strong as Li Zongbao didn't dare to speak. What was Xiao Hua? It was better to keep quiet. Yes, since nephew Zongbao said so, it was worth lending the flying boat to you. Wang Yi still held on to the word, rental, and said with a smile. However, nephew Zongbao, you don't have to rush to the flowing ice valley. Yes, it's my business how to arrange it. Uncle Wang, it's better if you don't interfere. Li Zongbao retorted calmly. Ha ha ha, of course I don't care where nephew Zongbao goes. Wang Yi laughed and said, However, in 10 days the Taoist sect disciples will launch a large-scale attack on the Seven Extremes Ridge and the flowing ice valley. That place was the location of the spiritual vein of the Sky Patrol City. Now, it has become the base of the sword cultivators. Many sword cultivators' disciples are resting there. It is a good opportunity for us to sneak attack. If fellow Taoist Zongbao is interested, you can go and take a look. Perhaps Qin Jian will go as well. When he looked at Li Zongbao again, he was completely different from before. He was no longer in a hurry and just bowed. Thank you for your kindness, Marshal Uncle Wang. Junior will discuss it with Junior Marshal Brother Xiao again before using this flying boat that has yet to belong to us. And you can go back and wait. Wang Yi waved his hand. This old man and the others still need to discuss how to arrange the troops. Yes, thank you, Marshal Uncle Wang. Li Zongbao bowed and left the discussion hall with Xiao Hua and Xiao Mao. As soon as he walked out of the conference hall, Xiao Hua couldn't hold back and said in a low voice, Senior Marshal Brotherly, how can this rental be compared to your own? This is obviously far from enough. Humph, Li Zongbao sneered. Didn't you say earlier that you were going to borrow my hands? Why, do you want to force yourself to endure? What was the result? Actually, sometimes, showing weakness didn't mean compromising. Taking risks is the biggest hidden danger. Seeing the double meaning in Li Zongbao's words, Xiao Hua frowned. He didn't understand what Li Zongbao was talking about. Hee, big brother, Xiao Mao said in a low voice. Big brother is in the picture and doesn't understand what Senior Marshal Brotherly means. What do you mean? This rental, doesn't it belong to us? Xiao Mao chuckled. Although they didn't clearly state who it belongs to, the flying boat is in our hands. Even if the Seven Skills sect shouted 1,000,000 times, the flying boat wouldn't fly back. It would still be under our feet. Besides, we're renting it for 99 years. When the time comes and we can't decide who it belongs to, we'll just rent it for another 99 years. The amount of spirit stones they give each year isn't much either. What's the difference between that and our own flying boat? Isn't the Seven Skills sect's nominal ownership? Moreover, the Seven Skills sect doesn't have this nominal ownership, Li Zongbao said coldly. They want to leave it for the younger generation to settle. I'd like to see which Seven Skills sect's younger generation dares to settle it with me. Don't even mention the word flying boat. I understand. Xiao Hua bowed. Thank you for protecting me, Senior Marshal Brotherly. Do you need me to protect you? Li Zongbao asked with a smile. Of course. Xiao Hua answered bluntly. Li Zongbao looked around and snorted coldly. He didn't say anything else. Xiao Mao asked carefully. Are we going to Flowing Ice Valley now, or are we going with the Dao sect cultivators? Of course we're going now. Xiaohua said anxiously. Don't let Tu Hong escape. There's no need to be in such a hurry. Li Zongbao waved his hand. Since there's nothing else going on in the meeting hall, we don't need to be in such a hurry. Qin Jian isn't in Flowing Ice Valley to begin with. We went there just now, to act as scouts for others. What's the point of that? Besides, I heard from Master that the Huanhua sect's disciples are also going to Flowing Ice Valley. I think it's better if we go together. Qin Jian isn't in Flowing Ice Valley? Then we... Xiaohua was bewildered. I'll explain it to you in detail after we leave Sky Patrol City. Li Zongbao didn't want to say more. He waved his hand and said, I have nothing else to do. If you want to go, you can go now. However, when Xiaohua heard that the Huanhua sect was also going to Flowing Ice Valley, he didn't want to go first. He smiled apologetically and said, In that case, let's wait a little longer? It won't be too late to talk about it when we have definite news. Okay, then I'll go back to the Utopia faction station first. Li Zongbao waved his hand and left. Xiao Mao, on the other hand, accompanied Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua's somewhat displeased expression, he transmitted his voice. Big brother, this golden core master of your Imperial Thunder sect is too sanctimonious. He only said that the Imperial Thunder sect is a large sect and only said something about tolerance. It really makes people unhappy. Compared to my Xunyan school, it's really far behind. Alas, it's more than that. Xiaohua suddenly thought of the day when he went to Sky Thunder Peak with the thunder-devouring bead. The thunder-controlling sect was surrounded by the Xunyan school, the Qiqiao sect, and the Shanghua sect. They wanted to stop him, but the thunder-controlling sect didn't react at all. This tolerance. Is it really the demeanor of a big sect? Looking at the Utopia faction and Li Zongbao's rather unscrupulous attitude, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a little envious. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Xiaohua waved his hand. You should also hurry up and cultivate. Flowing Ice Valley must be another fierce battle. Now that the cultivators in the late stage of Foundation establishment and Golden Core have come out, the number of Bright Sword Grade 6 and Illusory Sword Grade 1 will definitely increase. You should also be careful. Yes, I understand. Xiao Mao bowed. I'll go back to the Xunyan School's station. Big brother, how many more days do you want to wait? Or follow me to the Xunyan School's station? Why would I go to your Xunyan School? Xiaohua waved his hand. I'll go back to the thunder-controlling sect. Yes. Xiao Mao bowed and flew away. Xiaohua looked at his back and sighed. He also flew to the thunder-controlling sect station. -8. Chapter 2471. When Xiaohua returned to the Imperial Thunder sect, he knew that he didn't have a place to cultivate, so he could only find Changshu. He took out spirit stones and found an ordinary pill refining cave to cultivate. In the Huan country sword domain, the dozens of illusory swordsmen gathered. The mountain was still covered in ice and snow, and the water was still as calm as jade. However, there were much fewer people. There were only a dozen or so illusory sword level 3 swordsmen standing expressionlessly above the pool. In addition to these differences, there was a roar that echoed throughout the valley. Kaka, this old man knows you are that terrifying phoenix. Come, let this old man fight you for 300 rounds. Kaka, what, you want to escape? Eat this old man's claw. It was none other than Yu Ming, who had escaped from the Yin-Yang Spring Mountain. At this time, Yu Ming was exactly the same as when he escaped from Xiaohua's hands. His mouth was saying inexplicable words, and the spiritual power around his body flashed. From time to time, he would fly up and down, and the sound of the wind would resound as he attacked the void. His figure was extremely nimble as he flashed back and forth in midair, as if he was really facing Xiaohua. Sword friend Lianing! Lu Ruochang, who was standing quietly on the surface of the lake, watched for a long time. He sighed and said to a short old man about 10 feet away from him, Rain's sword friend. You really can't remember the situation at that time? You really can't tell who killed sword friend Yu Ming from the Clear Sword sect? The old man was wearing gray clothes and looked gray. He whispered, "Junior Marshal brother, you not only can't remember the situation at that time, he doesn't even know who he is. Fortunately, he followed his memory and returned to the Quilted Mountain. Otherwise, if he was killed by a cultivator, we wouldn't know his whereabouts. As for who killed sword friend Yu Ming from the Clear Sword sect, isn't it obvious? Isn't it the Imperial Thunder sect's terrifying phoenix?" Lianing glanced at the slightly plump, white-haired Zhu Qingye from the Clear Sword sect, who was standing not far from him, and said. Lu Ruochang shook his head. "Although the terrifying phoenix has a great reputation, he is still a Foundation establishment cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. At most, he is at the late stage of Foundation establishment. There is no way he could have killed sword friend Zhong Haoshuan from the Clear Sword sect. There are even several swordsmen at the second grade of the illusory sword realm. What about Ling Yunwu and the other illusory swordsmen from the High Wind Sword sect?" Zhu Qingye disagreed. "In my opinion, firstly, Ling Yunwu and the other sword friends fell into Tu Hong's formation, and it wasn't the doing of the terrifying phoenix. Secondly, Ling Yunwu and the other sword friends couldn't have survived, and the terrifying phoenix couldn't have survived," Lu Ruochang said resolutely. "If the terrifying phoenix is still alive, he must be at the peak of the Gold Core stage, or even the nascent soul stage. This is different from the information we received. How do you explain Yu Ming's situation?" Zhu Qingye continued to ask. "Moreover, Qin Jian and I were also in Sky Patrol City that day. We can prove that perfected Shui of Sky Patrol City did not leave Sky Patrol City. What about Tu Hong?" Lu Ruochang also smiled and said, "The Dao sect cultivators keep saying that it was sword friend Qin who killed that fellow, but what about the truth? Wasn't Qin Jian with Zhu Jianyu?" Zhu Qingye's brows furrowed as well. He was very puzzled. "That's right. Let alone Qin Jian, even I find it strange. Which sword transformation senior killed Qin Jian? He hasn't said anything until now. What about my junior brother Feng?" A burly beast cultivator said coldly. "Although junior brother Feng's cultivation seems to be at the second grade of the illusory sword realm, as far as I know, he has long been at the third grade of the illusory sword realm. If he was killed mysteriously, who else could it be other than perfected Shui of Sky Patrol City?" Lu Ruochang smiled bitterly and was also puzzled. He said, "Let me tell you, sword friend Sang Yuan, I just returned from the Gale Snow Field. That place was in a mess. If it was perfected Shui of Sky Patrol City, he wouldn't have made such a big fuss, right? However, according to the disciples who fled, it was a cultivator similar to the terrifying phoenix. A Foundation establishment cultivator shouldn't be a match for sword friend Feng, right? The terrifying phoenix you saw was only at the Foundation establishment cultivator. It's hard to say if he didn't hide his cultivation like junior brother Feng. Maybe he also has the strength of a golden core cultivator," Sang Yuan said coldly. "That's the problem." Lu Ruochang smiled apologetically. "If the terrifying phoenix has the strength of a golden core cultivator, if he could kill sword friend Feng Buping, then he must have the cultivation of a late golden core cultivator, right? How could he hide his cultivation to the early Foundation establishment cultivator? It's already good enough that he could hide it to the early golden core cultivator, right? Who knows what strange secret techniques the Dao sect cultivators have?" Sang Yuan was a little more relaxed. Even if the terrifying phoenix has the cultivation of a late golden core cultivator, how could he let sword friend Yu Ming escape? He should have been able to kill sword friend Yu Ming easily. Also, since the terrifying phoenix has the cultivation of a late golden core cultivator, that day on Rooster Crow Mountain, it wasn't just some bright swordsman who died, right? Even if it was the Gale Snowfield, there wouldn't be too many swordsmen who escaped, right? But if the terrifying phoenix didn't have the cultivation of a late golden core cultivator, junior brother Zhong Haoshuan and the others couldn't have been killed, Zhu Qingye said. So, from what I see, there must be two Dao sect cultivators here. One is a late golden core cultivator who killed sword friend Feng Buping, then killed my bright sword sect sword friend, stole the yin-yang sword gourd, and even did other things that damaged my sword realm. The other one might be the terrifying phoenix. He was lucky enough to escape from the battle on Mount Quanjin. Of course, maybe there was no terrifying phoenix at Mount Quanjin that day, and it was only sword friend Ling Yun's conjecture. Unfortunately, sword friend Ling Yun encountered Tu Hong's spirit hollow ray on Mount Quanjin. What LVGN said makes sense. Xu Qingyan nodded. That's the only explanation that makes sense. As for sword friend Yu Ming, he must have escaped from the late Golden Core cultivator by a freak combination of factors and met the terrifying phoenix. That's why this happened. That's right. Lianing nodded. The damage to junior brother Yu Ming's soul is related to the soul cultivator's blood sacrifice soul talisman. I'm afraid that the Golden Core cultivator disdained to take his life, and that's why he escaped. But if the terrifying phoenix is someone from the Imperial Thunder sect? Don't tell me there's no news? If the terrifying phoenix was at Mount Quanjin that day, and he was lucky enough to escape, then that person's name is easy to say. It's none other than Cui Hongshan, Jin Minghui, Su Qing, Qiu Su, and Xiao Hua. But as for who exactly it is, because we don't have the appearance of the 5 people, we can't be sure. LV Rachong said. Of course, I've already sent people to look for the appearance of the 5 people. There should be news soon. What did LVGNU say just now, that the terrifying phoenix might have done something that damaged my sword realm? Sang Yuan looked very simple and honest, but he was very sensitive to something. This? LV Rochang also hesitated. This is also my guess. It's just that I received some vague information from Senior Huashan. Later on, I heard that Tu Hong was killed, so I understood a little. Tu Hong was undoubtedly killed by Senior Huashan, because Senior Huashan is currently in a rage. It seems to be somewhat similar to what happened at Chicken Crow Mountain. Oh. Hearing that it was the rage of Senior Huashan, no one dared to ask further. Moreover, according to Senior Huashan's wishes, I've already issued the number 1 bounty in my sword realm, just like the Dao Sect's conference hall. Whoever can kill the terrifying phoenix will be heavily rewarded by all the sword sects in my sword realm. LV Rachang said again. Whether he's in the early or late foundation establishment stage, I want to see his head. Good. My bright sword sect is the first to agree. Xu Qingyan nodded and shouted. The others also clapped their hands in agreement. Actually, I've invited everyone here today, other than the matter of Senior Huashan Yu Ming. I also have to discuss the key to this battle with all of you sword friends. LV Rachan looked at everyone and said, Oh, is it Senior LV Jianyo's sword formation? Xu Qingya was a little worried. My bright sword sect has dragged you down again. I'm really sorry. If Senior LV Jianyu has any orders, please let me know. A trace of anger flashed across LV Rochang's face. To be honest, she had an indescribable feeling in her heart at this time. Everything was in her plan, but unfortunately, most of the developments were within her control. These small and crucial points were always a little off. A trace of anger flashed across her face, but it only lasted for a moment. She replied coldly. In fact, as early as 5 years ago, when Ling Yunwu made a mistake while searching for the spirit-swallowing bugs, I was already alarmed. Although sword friend Zhong Haoxuan of your sect said that it would only take a few months, he still couldn't bring out the yin and yang sword spirit. Therefore, I made other plans at that time. If nothing goes wrong, the yin and yang sword spirit should be successfully bred in half a year. Zhu Jianyu, there's nothing else for you to do here for the time being. You only need to return to your sect and consolidate the spirit stone mine that you've already occupied. Then, you can continue to kill cultivators. When my sword formation is completed, we can kill all the golden core cultivators of your sect. Yes, I understand. Xu Qingye bowed and replied. Senior LV Jianyo's sword formation has already been completed? Yu Ming Senior Huashan Yu Ming asked hesitantly. Then the spirit-swallowing bugs. I understand Senior Huashan Yu Ming's meaning. LV Rachang said. Ling Yunwu died in the Jinshan Spring Formation. Senior Huashan Yu Ming also died in that battle. I can't ask Senior Hua Xingyu Ming to use the secret technique. Therefore, I asked Senior Hua Xingyu Ming of the Seven Spirits Mountain, and several other sword friends to use the secret technique to obtain the larvae of the spirit-swallowing bugs. Alas, that's good. Sang Yuan waved his palms and sighed. Not many people know the secret technique of my quilted mountain sect. That's why I came here. Since Senior Hua Xingyu Ming has already sacrificed himself, I'll live for a few more days and help them kill more cultivators of your sect. That's right. LV Ruochang frowned slightly. However, Senior Hua Xingyu Ming and Senior Hua Xingyu Ming still need to prepare how to drive the spirit-swallowing bugs in the spirit-swallowing formation. Senior Hua Xingyu Ming and Senior Hua Xingyu Ming will be in charge of everything there. Hearing this, Tseng Yuan became excited. He patted his chest and said, Senior LVGNU, don't worry. Although it's difficult to drive the spirit-swallowing bugs, we'll do anything to kill cultivators. Good. LV Ruochang also clapped his hands and said, In order to kill the cultivators of your sect and for the survival of our warriors of the Sword region, you've sacrificed too much. Fortunately, the battle situation is gradually becoming clearer. This Dao cultivator war is far from what it was in the past. Our sword cultivator warriors will definitely step into the territory of cultivators. Good. Zhu Qingye could not help but clap his hands and say, I'll wait for Senior LVGNO's good news, but this sword formation. Although it's the key to this war, it's not the end of it. LV Ruochang's face became mysterious. He changed the topic and said, I've already said that I've invited all of you here to discuss something else. What? Senior LVGNU, do you have other arrangements? Zhu Qingye and the others were shocked. In their eyes, LV Ruochang's arrangement of the formation was already beyond their reach. How could they not be shocked when they heard that LV Ruochang had other plans? Of course. In order to live up to Senior Hua Xingyu's name, I naturally have to rack my brains and think of a way to defeat the enemy. LV Ruochang's face was calm, but his eyes could not help but flash a trace of excitement as he spoke again. Terrifying Phoenix, do you want to kill me? Why don't you come over? Yu Ming's voice sounded between the distant rock walls again. In that case, we'll have much fewer cultivators to resist the Dao sect and the swordsmen to use the sword formation. I'm afraid it's a little inappropriate? It doesn't matter. The sword formation has been set up. We still have to transfer other swordsmen from the sword region. These discussions were covered by Yu Ming's cries. -8. Chapter 2472. Xiao Hua, who was far away in Sky Patrol City, did not sense Yu Ming's challenge. He did not even sneeze. He was now in a kind of surprise. How could he not be happy? Previously, when he gave the Prajna Paramitha Heart Sutra to Zhang Qishao gave Xiao Xianrui a jade pendant found in the ancestral temple to Xiao Hua. At that time, Zhang Qishao only said that it might be a body cultivation technique. Only Xiao Hua could practice it in Shanghuaming, so she gave it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua did not care at first and casually put it in the space. Today, when his primordial spirit took out the jade pendant to check, he was surprised to find that it recorded a rare bone tempering technique in the Dawn Rain continent. It was not a body cultivation technique at all. Even with Xiao Hua's understanding of the bone tempering technique, he vaguely perceived that this technique seemed to be different from the bone tempering technique in the Sunset Island. It was also different from the Big Dipper magical fist. It might be a technique from outside the Dawn Rain continent. Thinking of the abnormality of the god statue and the dark mantra that the 10,000 demon realm empress was looking for, Xiao Hua's heart was also a little confused. This technique, could it be from the 10,000 demon realm? However, whether it was a technique from the 10,000 demon realm or not, since it was a bone tempering technique, Xiao Hua would not hesitate to comprehend it. It was just that this technique was quite mysterious, and the chant was abnormally obscure. If he did not spend a lot of effort, he would definitely not be able to comprehend it. Xiao Hua, who was ecstatic, kept the jade pendant in the space and handed it to the primordial spirit to comprehend. His mind fell into the primordial spirit. Xiaohua had always been busy killing sword cultivators and running for his life. He rarely paid attention to the results of the bone tempering. At this time, on the red bones, there were already about 70% of the place densely covered with orange threads. It was like a dense spider web covering the entire bone. Xiaohua understood that his second level of bone tempering was not complete yet. This is a bit strange, Xiaohua secretly thought. My Dao sect cultivation has now reached the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. As long as the opportunity comes, I can condense core at any time, but why is the second level of bone tempering not 99%? This seems to be somewhat different from when I was in the qi refining realm. Since this bone tempering hasn't reached the large success stage, does that mean I can't condense a core? I remember that when I built my foundation, my physique changed from fire to earth. What about this time? Was it after the core condensation or after the bone tempering? Or do you still refuse to change? Although my dermic powers have greatly increased, the speed of bone tempering has not increased because of the increase in dermic powers. Looks like bone tempering and the Dao sect's dermic powers are completely unrelated. Also, the fire origin source was delivered to my doorstep, but what about the earth origin source? Where was it? Without the earth origin, the second layer of the bone tempering technique would never reach the grand completion stage. Sigh, why is cultivation so difficult? When Xiaohua thought about the origin of earth, he couldn't help but scratch his head. He'd been on the Daybreak continent for so many years. He'd cultivated from a first-level qi refining cultivator to the late stage of foundation building and was about to condense his gold core. However, he'd never heard of any origin of fire or origin of earth. Even during the auction for nascent soul cultivators, they'd never been mentioned. An innate jellyfish was already at the peak of heaven. Where should he go to find one? Sigh, I don't know when I'll have the chance to return to the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua was a little distressed. I originally thought that there was hope if I followed that empress, but now that Dyer is injured like this, I don't know if that empress is still around. If I only rely on Dyer, there's no hope. Forget it, let's refine some fireball talismans first. Xiaohua clapped his hands, took out a piece of jade essence, and began to refine the fireball talismans with familiarity. When Xiaohua first started refining, he was still somewhat unfamiliar with it, and even failed a few times. However, after he changed his Taoist robes a few times, he began to become proficient. In the eyes of the ordinary cultivators of the Dawn-Rain continent, and not just ordinary cultivators, even nascent soul cultivators would consider the jade talismans to be precious. Now, he was refining them piece by piece. Of course, this was only a fireball talisman. It was far from being comparable to a real jade talisman. While Xiaohua was refining, he pondered. My method of controlling the jade talismans is completely different from the Daybreak continents. Moreover, it's merely relying on the control of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This is something that the cultivators of the Daybreak continent have never thought of. However, this shouldn't be the reason why jade talismans are so rare in the Daybreak continent. Those nascent soul cultivators are already able to sense the heavenly Tao. Their control of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth wouldn't be any worse than mine. Needless to say, cultivators at the spirit severing stage and above. Then what's the real reason? Moreover, the magic array within the Phoenix Talisman is so complicated. I understand. Thinking up to here, Xiaohua unconsciously groaned, and said self-deprecatingly, This young master is thinking too much. Which one of them isn't an almighty person who has grasped the technique of refining talismans? How could they refine low-level goods like the fireball talisman? Those almighty people are at least deity transformation cultivators. The spells they know won't be inferior to the magic array within the Phoenix Talisman no matter what. If they want to refine this talisman, they'll need to spend magic power and energy. Since they want to refine it once, it'll naturally be the kind with enormous power. Otherwise, it won't be of any use when facing an enemy. Perhaps refining the Phoenix Talisman is like refining some condensed knowledge treasure, something that can only be refined once in a lifetime. How could they not refine it properly? That's why there are common jade talismans and heavenly jade talismans. And only this young master would make these boring little jade talismans. Just as Xiaohua was looking around narcissistically, the pill refining cave's restrictions slightly flickered. Oh, Li Zongbao, that guy is going to leave again. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the jade talisman that was just formed, that was extremely similar to a cluster of flames, was stored into the space. He then took out the command token. Who would have thought that when he opened the restriction, there was actually a person following behind the communication talisman? Isn't that Chang Shu, the city guard of Sky Patrol City? Io, why is it fellow Taoist Chang? Xiaohua said unexpectedly as he stood up. Hee, I'm really sorry to let fellow Taoist Xiao cultivate in such a simple and crude pill room. Chang Shu looked around and bowed. Haha, it's fine. Xiaohua patted his storage pouch and said, In this way, won't I save up my spirit stones? Hee, fellow Taoist Xiao really knows how to joke. Chang Shu said with a smile. That day, I didn't expect fellow Taoist Xiao to return so quickly, so I couldn't leave behind a good pill refining cave. Now, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator from 7 Skills sect just came out of the pill refining cave. If fellow Taoist Xiao is willing, you can go there now. Forget it. Xiaohua waved his hand. I won't be able to stay for more than a few days. This place is fine. Oh? How many more days can fellow Taoist Xiao stay? Chang Shu was slightly stunned. I just asked someone, and there's already some news. In about 3 days. At this point, Chang Shu looked at the restriction that Xiaohua didn't activate and didn't say anything else. Oh? So fast? Xiaohua was overjoyed and quickly activated the restriction at the cave entrance. He said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Chang is really amazing. Not at all. Chang Shu said with a smile. Because I'm a city guard of Sky Patrol City, I usually interact with a lot of cultivators. This isn't much. Fellow Taoist Chang is too modest. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, If you asked me to look for this matter, I definitely won't be able to find it. Alas, fellow Taoist Xiao is really joking. Chang Shu smiled bitterly. Being able to find such an opportunity is nothing. Being able to participate in this kind of secret meeting is something to be proud of. At this point, Chang Shu smiled apologetically and said, I've already agreed with them that the secret auction will be held late at night 3 days later. That person just happens to have a token. If fellow Taoist Xiao wants to go, you have to pay a sum of spirit stones today. Once they see the spirit stones, they can give the token to me. Oh? Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly, and he said with realization, This sum of spirit stones is probably not cheap, right? That's right. It's indeed not a small sum. Chang Shu said a number and then explained, It's all because I don't have enough face. I heard that person say, Haha, no need, no need. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. After thinking for a moment, he took out a storage bag and handed it to Chang Shu. I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Chang. I'll be waiting here for fellow Taoist Chang's good news. Chang Shu was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Xiaohua to take out the storage bag without even frowning. That was not a small sum of spirit stones. If it wasn't for this, he wouldn't have come to find Xiaohua. Fellow Taoist Xiao, are you sure you want to go to the secret auction? Chang Shu probed again. This sum of spirit stones, if fellow Taoist Xiao wins the bid, you can use it. If you don't, you can only get back 70%. Oh? There's such a rule? Xiaohua really didn't frown and said with a smile. Since I'm going to bid, I won't lose anything. Fellow Taoist Chang can go as you wish. All right, Chang Shu took the storage bag, cupped his hands, and quickly walked out of the pill refining cave. However, after an hour, Chang Shu once again returned in high spirits. He handed over a bronze-colored tiger tally and a jade slip to Xiaohua. He seemed to be able to do something for Xiaohua, or perhaps obtain the qualifications to participate in the secret auction. Chang Shu himself felt immensely proud of himself. Thank you, fellow Taoist Chang. Xiao Hua had already participated in the so-called secret auction before, so he naturally knew the secret. He also knew that now that Shuiyu Taoist master was in charge of Century City, and it was also at the forefront of the battle between Dao cultivators. Those who could participate in the secret auction were at most gold core stage cultivators. There would never be a situation like the previous secret auction where a nascent soul stage cultivator actually appeared. Seeing that Xiao Hua's expression didn't change and he calmly accepted the tiger tally and jade slip, Chang Shu was slightly surprised. It was obvious that he had overestimated Xiao Hua's cultivation. However, he didn't expect that this foundation establishment stage cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect, who didn't seem to be good at socializing, actually didn't take the secret auction that even he didn't participate in seriously. Thinking about it again, Xiao Hua was the one who proposed the secret auction to him first. Chang Shu couldn't help but think about it. -8. Chapter 2473. This Xiao Hua, from his name, he doesn't seem to be a blood disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect? Moreover, he was sent here at the beginning of the battle, so he doesn't seem to have any background. But he actually managed to persist until now without suffering any injuries. He must have some background. Even the reason he came to the battlefield before was to gain experience. Making friends with a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect with such a background will definitely benefit me endlessly in the future. Immediately, Xiao Hua became a person with a strong backer like Qian Dihing in Chang Shu's eyes. "Oh, fellow Taoist Cham?" Seeing that Chang Shu was somewhat absent-minded, Xiao Hua asked curiously, "Does fellow Taoist have something to tell me?" Chang Shu hurriedly smiled apologetically. "What do I have to tell you? I've only heard about this secret auction from others. I never thought I would be able to participate. If it weren't for fellow Taoist Xiao, I wouldn't even know where this secret auction would be held." Hee, Xiao Hua laughed. "Isn't it all recorded in the jade slip? Fellow Taoists can just take a look." "Of course not." Chang Shu hurriedly waved his hand and said, "The things in this jade slip can only be seen once with divine sense before automatically disappearing. I don't dare to delay fellow Taoist Zhao's matters." Immediately, he said regretfully, "Unfortunately, if it weren't for the fact that this tiger tally can only be used by one cultivator, and that I can't leave my post at night, I would really like to follow fellow Taoist Xiao to broaden my horizons. There will always be a chance." Xiao Hua didn't care at all. "Besides, this secret auction won't be able to broaden my horizons." "Yes, fellow Taoist Zhao's guidance is extremely correct." Chang Shu confirmed that Xiao Hua had a background. He respectfully cupped his hands and hurriedly left. Xiao Hua didn't care about the change in Chang Shu's attitude. In his opinion, all of Chang Shu's actions were normal because cultivators who could attract his attention could only be gold core cultivators. In a flash, 3 days passed. When the time was near, Xiao Hua very casually took out the jade slip and immersed his divine sense in it. When he saw the location inside, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Then, a trace of a smile actually hung on his face. Coming out of the pill refining cave, what was rare was that the usually lively scene outside had disappeared, and it was similar to the initial loneliness. Snowflakes once again drifted down from the sky, fluttering as they hit Xiao Hua's face. "Eh? Where are the arrogant late-stage Foundation establishment disciples?" Xiao Hua blinked his eyes. Naturally, it was very easy for him to think of the situation a few days ago. I'm afraid that he has already been sent to the front lines. Alas, they have underestimated the intensity of the battle. Perhaps only when they return from the battlefield will they change their attitude and respect us, the surviving disciples." Xiao Hua sighed and flew out of the encampment. Who would have thought that along the way, it would be so quiet that not a single disciple could be seen? This is bad. Xiao Hua suddenly felt that something was wrong. Did something happen? Where did this disciple come from? Why did he come out instead of meditating in the quiet room? Don't tell me, you don't know the rules of the sect? Sure enough, just as Xiao Hua's figure appeared in the encampment, several middle-stage Foundation establishment patrolling disciples immediately flew over from the shadows and stopped him. "Oh my, what ban?" Xiao Hua stared blankly, then hurriedly bowed and said, "Disciple is Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad. I didn't receive any order." "Ah? First squad? You are Xiao Hua?" The leading disciple was also stunned. "Why are you still in the Sky Patrol City? All the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad have returned to the Sky Thunder Peak." "I see." Xiao Hua understood. He clapped his hands and handed his token to the leading disciple. Then he said with a smile, "I am indeed Xiao Hua. However, I was conscripted by Senior Brother Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction and cannot leave the Sky Patrol City for the time being." "I see." The leading disciple took Xiao Hua's token and looked at it for a while. Then he returned it to Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "The ban of the Imperial Thunder Sect is issued by the squad leaders." "Oh, that's not right. This ban was issued after the assassination of Senior Tu Hongtu of the Sky Patrol City. The squad leader of the first squad should have informed Junior Brother Xiao." Hearing the leading disciple's question, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Of course. At that time, Cui Hongchen was absent-minded and was thinking about his own happiness. Moreover, after Xiao Hua returned, he immediately took Cui Hongchen and Dui Qiming to the elixir production cave. After leaving the cave, they took the thunder boat back to the Sky Thunder Peak. Even if Cui Hongchen knew about the ban, he wouldn't have had the chance to tell Xiao Hua about it. He, squad leader Cui has returned to the Sky Thunder Peak. How could I know why?" Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. "However, I received a message from Senior Brother Li Zongbao, who asked me to go to a place in the Sky Patrol City. It seems that there is something urgent. I wonder if I can go out." The leading disciple shook his head and said with a trace of embarrassment, "Junior Brother Xiao, although you didn't receive the ban and didn't know that you can't go out at night, it doesn't mean that you can violate the ban. Forgive me for not letting you go out." "Damn it!" Xiao Hua scratched his head. Not only could he not participate in the secret auction, but he had also paid a lot of spirit stones. Now, he was going to lose his chance. What the disciple said next made him even more furious. "Moreover, even if I let you out, the Sky Patrol City doesn't allow cultivators to go out at night. You can't go anywhere." "Humph, I understand now." Xiao Hua finally knew the reason why he had to pay spirit stones for the secret auction. He even knew the reason why the secret auction was held late at night. Xiao Hua wanted to turn back to the pill refining cave, but he changed his mind and handed the token to the disciple on duty again. He smiled and said, "Senior brother, please take a look at my token again. There is the seal of the conference hall's special permit, the ban of the Imperial Thunder Sect, and the ban of the Sky Patrol City. Can you do me a favor?" "Oh? Is that so?" The disciple took Xiao Hua's token again embarrassedly. He looked at it carefully with his divine thought and smiled apologetically. "I was a little careless. I didn't see it clearly just now. Since Junior Brother Xiao has a special permit, then the ban of the Imperial Thunder Sect can be ignored. However, the ban of the Sky Patrol City, that's not something I can know." Xiao Hua took the token from the disciple and smiled. "Senior brother, you can let me out of the Imperial Thunder Sect. If the disciples of the Sky Patrol City don't recognize me, I can only apologize to Senior Brother Li Zongbao, who asked his special permit to be defeated by the Sky Patrol City's ban." "Ha ha ha," the disciple laughed. "Although this is the Sky Patrol City, the conference hall is the head of our sect. Which disciple of the Sky Patrol City dares not to give face to the conference hall? Don't worry." After that, the disciple raised his hand and said, "Junior Brother Xiao, please." "I dare not." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and flew out of the Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment with the other disciples. Sure enough, the streets of the Sky Patrol City were so quiet and deserted that one could almost hear the sound of snow falling. The thick dark clouds in the sky blocked the moonlight. In Xiao Hua's eyes, there was only darkness. There's always darkness behind the sunlight. If there's no darkness, how can one understand the preciousness of the sunlight? Xiao Hua sighed and flew slowly into the distance. Humph, this immortal Shui Yu is really good at scheming. If I didn't have the special permit of the conference hall, I'm afraid I would have to use the Devil Realm's concealment technique in order to participate in this secret auction. If he had any secret technique, wouldn't I have fallen into his trap? Xiao Hua snorted and thought to himself. He was not sure whether the special permit of the conference hall could defeat the ban of the Sky Patrol City. However, after listening to the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, he was confident. Just as he thought, Xiao Hua was stopped by the patrolling disciples of the Sky Patrol City. Of course, with the seal of the conference hall's special permission, coupled with Xiao Hua's pretense, it was not difficult. Xiao Hua arrived at the location of the secret auction. When he saw the tea house where he met Ziyi that day, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. If it were not for the instructions in the jade slip, he would not have known that this seemingly ordinary tea house was actually the location of the Sky Patrol City's secret auction. The door of the tea house was closed. It was not as bright as it used to be. Xiao Hua walked up a few steps, stretched out his hand, and gently knocked on the wooden door. After 9 knocks with different rhythms, a hoarse voice came from behind the wooden door. "Who's visiting? What's the matter?" Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. "I've already knocked on the door, why are you still pretending?" However, he still followed the instructions in the jade slip. "I have obtained a strange copper talisman. I'd like to invite shopkeeper Lien to appraise it." "Oh, I see." As the voice sounded, a small square hole was pulled open on the wooden door, revealing a big fat face. The small eyes on the big face were squeezed to the size of mung beans, staring at Xiao Hua from top to bottom. However, Xiao Hua was wearing a camouflage robe at this time, so what could he see? Xiao Hua clapped his hands and handed over the bronze tiger tally. A big, chubby hand took it and closed the small hole. Unexpectedly, after the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea, a creaking sound was heard. The wooden door opened a crack, and a hoarse voice rang out. "Fellow Taoist, please come in." "Thank you." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and stepped inside. The layout of the tea house was no different from how it was during the day. Every table was wiped clean, but there was less noise. Why did fellow Taoist come so late? The tall and fat foundation establishment cultivator closed the door and asked strangely. "Huh? This old man came late?" Xiao Hua was a little surprised. Didn't the jade slip say that it started late at night? Hee. That cultivator once again used his divine sense to scan Xiao Hua with a trace of respect on his face. This poor Taoist is truly impressed that fellow Taoist can come here in the middle of the night under the city's curfew. Oh? Could it be that this old man is the only one who came at this time? Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Hee, you're not the only one, but you can be counted on one hand, the cultivator said as he led the way. -8. Chapter 2474. Well, I looked at the jade slip and thought it would be fine as long as I arrived at night. I didn't expect to wait in the tea house during the day, Xiao Hua replied casually. Well, I and the others were negligent. The cultivator obviously mistook Xiao Hua's identity and said, I and the others sent out the jade slip a long time ago, but we didn't know there was a curfew. However, many cultivators come here during the day. It's really rare to see someone as late as you. While he was talking, the door behind him opened again. Oh? The cultivator's fat face showed surprise. He looked at it and smiled apologetically. Fellow cultivator, could you please wait for a moment? To be honest, you are beyond our expectations. I really didn't expect there to be someone later than you. Don't worry about it. Xiao Hua was a little discouraged when he saw the situation. Judging from the situation, the secret auction in Sky Patrol City was far inferior to the secret auction in Weeping Moon City. He was afraid that this trip would be in vain. After a while, another cultivator walked in with the fat man. Xiao Hua's divine sense scanned and also felt the other party's divine sense. However, since he couldn't see the other party's cultivation, Xiao Hua just nodded slightly and didn't raise his hand to salute. The cultivator didn't even move, as if he didn't see Xiaohua nodding. "Fellow cultivators, this way please!" The fat man didn't dare to neglect the two cultivators who came here despite the ban of the Sky Patrol City. He respectfully led the way. Xiaohua didn't hesitate and walked in front of the cultivator. When they reached the stairs leading to the second floor, the fat man took out a shuttle-shaped celestial artifact from his arms and activated it. The celestial artifact turned into a stream of light and rushed into the stairs. After a while, a layer of celestial artifact fluctuated inside the stairs, like a fountain in a deep pool, gradually overflowing. Then, a jade chair flashed out from the stairs, and a milky white brilliance came out from the jade chair. "Only one person can go in at a time. I wonder who will go in first?" The fat cultivator rubbed his fat hands, looking a little embarrassed and even a little uneasy. "Fellow Taoists, please go first." The cultivator who came later didn't make any hand gestures and just said calmly, "N." Xiaohua keenly sensed that this cultivator's behavior was clearly different from ordinary cultivators. However, he couldn't pinpoint the exact difference. It was probably just a feeling. Xiaohua flew and sat on the jade chair. The brilliance around the jade chair was like a lotus seed pod, shrinking and bringing Xiaohua into the array. When Xiaohua's eyes lit up, it was actually a place that was extremely similar to the tea house. However, at this moment, there were already dozens of intoxicated cultivators sitting here, very similar to the tea house during the day. "Oh!" Xiaohua's gaze swept over, and he felt even more disappointed. "Senior, do you have your tiger tally?" A chi refining cultivator had been waiting respectfully for a long time. After bowing respectfully, he asked with a smile. The brilliance of Xiaohua's arrival also attracted the attention of the cultivators sitting in front of him. Almost everyone turned their heads and used their divine sense to check. Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry to take out the copper talisman. Instead, he quickly took a few steps forward. At this moment, another cold brilliance flashed. The chi refining cultivator was slightly stunned and couldn't help but ask, "Senior! Senior, is there someone behind you?" "In." Xiaohua nodded slightly. The cold brilliance sat down cross-legged, and the figure of the tall cultivator also appeared. Everyone was even more surprised. Everyone knew that there was a curfew in Sky Patrol City at night, so ordinary cultivators couldn't come to this tea house. However, not only did someone come, but there were even two people. How could it not arouse suspicion? "Senior, where is your copper talisman?" The chi refining cultivator still respectfully asked the tall cultivator. The tall cultivator didn't say anything and flipped his hand. A tiger tally that was slightly different from Xiaohua's appeared in his hand. "Oh! Senior, please!" When the chi refining cultivator saw that the tiger tally had some golden engravings, he became even more respectful. He reached out his hand and took the tiger tally. Then, he led the tall cultivator to the front of the crowd. The tall cultivator glanced sideways at Xiaohua, who was standing at the side, and followed the small cultivator. "Senior, where is your tiger tally?" Not far away, another chi refining cultivator hurriedly came over and asked with a bow. "Here." Xiaohua took out his copper talisman. "Oh, Senior, please follow this junior." The chi refining cultivator took Xiaohua's copper talisman and glanced at it. Although he was respectful, he was far less reserved than the previous cultivator. He led Xiaohua to the back of the crowd. At this moment, inside the tea house, there were only a few tables that were unoccupied. There were 2 tables at the front and 2 at the back. Coincidentally, Xiaohua was sitting at a table at the very back, while the tall cultivator was sitting at the table at the very front. Obviously, when they saw that Xiaohua was actually sitting at the back, not only were the cultivators who came first surprised, but the cultivators who followed Xiaohua were even more puzzled. They couldn't help but look at Xiaohua a few more times. "Motherfucker," Xiaohua bitterly smiled. At this point, how could he not have guessed it? The secret auction in the Sky Patrol City was different from the secret auction in the Weeping Moon City. The order was different. The cultivators at the front had more privileges than the cultivators at the back. Moreover, the significance of each tiger tally was related to this. Chan Shu was just a city guard of the Sky Patrol City. The tiger tally he could get was of the lowest level. Forget it anyway. I'll just get some dry separation pills. I don't want to attract too much attention. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He didn't want to be the center of attention. When the two of them sat down, the whole space was deserted. Everyone was silent. Obviously, they didn't know each other. After another half an hour, the wall in front of the few jade chairs emitted a faint brilliance, and then the wall began to slowly retreat, leaving a space of several feet in front of everyone. At the same time, the ground of the space slowly rose, revealing a round platform about 10 feet in size. Sia la la! A burst of brilliance flashed, and a small hurricane blew in the middle of the round platform. A deep hole appeared in the middle of the round platform, and there was a step in the deep hole. A short, dark-skinned cultivator at the late stage of foundation establishment slowly walked up the steps to the round platform. The cultivator stood still on the round platform and looked around before bowing and saying, "This humble Taoist Bai Xing is the ruler of today's price negotiation. I hope everyone can come and support me." Seeing that no one in the room said anything, Bai Xing was not surprised and said, "Fellow cultivators, please rest assured. The reputation of my Sky Survey Tea House is still well known in Sky Survey City. Even the city lord knows about it, and this auction was approved by him. However, today is a curfew, so it's a little inconvenient for all of you. Bai Xing apologizes to all of you." With that, Bai Xing bowed deeply. "There's no need to be so polite." The cultivator who came with Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "His Excellency the City Lord won't care about your negotiation. We also know whether your Sky Survey Tea House is trustworthy or not. You'd better start quickly." "Yes, I'll start now," Bai Xing said in a respectful manner. "However, I always have to explain the rules before the start of each bargaining session so that the newcomers won't be confused." Then, Bai Xing patiently explained the rules of the bargaining session. Her nagging was no different from the rulers of all the auctions. Xiao Hua also heard clearly at the end. The rules were the general rules, but there were a few differences. First, the cultivators sitting at the front had priority. They could get the items that they bid for with the same amount. Second, this auction was divided into two parts. The first part was the same as the auction. The tea house provided items, and the cultivators bid for them. The second part was similar to the auction. The cultivators took out their own items, and the other cultivators bid. Of course, the cultivators in front still had priority. After Bai Xing finished speaking, the auction began. It was similar to Xiao Hua's idea and the layout of the tea house. Everything at the beginning was no different from the auction. Some ordinary medicinal pills, ordinary spiritual herbs, and even some qi refinement cultivation methods were really tasteless. However, even if these were ordinary items, there were still people who took a fancy to them. From time to time, some cultivators would raise their hands and bid. After a while, Xiao Hua suddenly understood. "Damn it, I've already paid a sum of spirit stones for the qualification to enter this bullshit auction. If I don't bid, I'll have to give 30% to this tea house. I'm giving it away for free. No matter what, I have to bid for something. These cultivators have probably already thought it through. No matter if it's useful or not, I'll get it first." Thinking about this, Xiao Hua was about to raise his hand to bid. Unfortunately, he woke up too late. Bai Xing on the high platform waved his hand and said with a smile, "These are the ordinary items that I can provide. Next is the item that everyone wants." "Oh?" Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. "The item that we want? Then, what is it?" Just as he was thinking, an aura refining disciple walked out from behind Bai Xing. He was holding a huge tray with more than a dozen small storage pouches on it. That disciple handed the tray to Bai Xing and then returned in admiration. He then heard Bai Xing point at the tray and say with a smile, "These are aura refining cultivation methods from more than a dozen cultivation groups. They were all found by some people on the battlefield. We've collected them and put them together. If any fellow Taoist needs any cultivation group's cultivation method, feel free to bid." Oh. Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Sure enough, A cultivator in front of him raised his hand and said, "This old man wants Qi refinement sex cultivation methods. Do you have any here?" "Yes." Bai Xing waved his hand and one of the storage pouches fell into his hand. He opened it and immersed his divine sense inside. After looking at it for a while, he said, "This storage pouch contains more than 20 jade slips for Qi refinement sex cultivation methods. Are they to your liking?" -8. Chapter 2475. Immediately, Bai Xing called out a rather large number of spirit stones. "And I want it!" That cultivator actually didn't even think about it and nodded. "All right, can the fellow Taoists in the front row negotiate?" Bai Xing asked as usual. "If no one wants it, then it's this fellow Taoists." The entire space was quiet, and no one made a sound. "All right, this storage pouch is fellow Taoists." Bai Xing pointed, and the storage pouch flew in front of the cultivator. The cultivator opened it and smiled. "It's the real deal." "Good." Immediately, that cultivator also took out a small storage pouch and threw it to Bai Xing. Bai Xing respectfully received it and smiled. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." With this cultivator taking the lead, 2 other cultivators in the front row picked up the storage pouches of 2 sections. When no one in the front row spoke, it was the turn of the cultivators behind. Obviously, the cultivators behind were very interested in Qi refinement techniques. There were actually 3 cultivators bidding for a storage pouch of the White Sect, which set off a small climax. After the Qi refining cultivation methods were auctioned off, it was time for the foundation building cultivation methods. The number of storage bags containing foundation building cultivation methods was obviously a lot less. Xiaohua had no interest in foundation building cultivation methods and Qi refining cultivation methods, so he could only sit and watch. The foundation establishment techniques were all taken by the senior cultivators, and the cultivators behind didn't get anything at all. However, they were still looking forward to it, as if there were even better things behind. After that, there weren't any golden core techniques as expected, but flying swords and sword slips for sword cultivators. These sword domain items set off a climax, and many cultivators in the back row competed to increase the price. Xiaohua looked at the quality of these flying swords and sword slips. Most of them were pregnant swords, and only 30% of them were bright swords. It was far from what he had, so it was even more boring. After these flying swords and sword slips, Bai Xing actually took out 10 flying swords used by illusory swordsmen. Unfortunately, they were all taken by the cultivators in the front row. Not to mention Xiaohua, even the cultivators near the front row didn't have time to speak. "This is a bit strange." The secret auction had been lively for 2 hours. Although Xiaohua didn't get anything, he already had a faint feeling that something was wrong. This was completely different from what he thought. Sure enough, the next bid made Xiaohua flabbergasted. Bai Xing took 3 storage bags from a disciple and said with a smile, "These 3 storage bags contain the tokens, magic weapons, and corpses of the 13 disciples of the strange beast sect of the Ripple Nation. May I ask, which fellow cultivator needs them?" "Ah!" Xiaohua almost cried out in shock. His previous bad feeling had indeed become reality, and it was such a cruel reality. The corpses of cultivators who died in battle could actually still be auctioned here. Obviously, Xiaohua's unusual behavior alarmed some people. Not only did the few cultivators beside him look over, even Bai Xing raised his head and glanced at Xiaohua before smiling apologetically. "Fellow Taoists in the back row, please wait a moment. Fellow Taoists will only have the qualifications to bid after the fellow Taoists in the front row have chosen." "Humph," Xiaohua snorted, but he was unable to vent the anger in his heart. A desolate feeling floated out from his heart. It was to the extent that a thick killing intent flashed in his bewildered eyes. He really didn't want these cultivators to desecrate the corpses of cultivators who died in battle, even if they weren't disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Bai Xing's voice sounded in his ears again. "These corpses of the strange beast sect's disciples were collected by some fellow Taoists from the battlefield. However, they weren't disciples of the strange beast sect, so they didn't have any obligation to return these things to the strange beast sect. Moreover, they didn't need any battle achievements. Therefore, if any fellow Taoist is from the strange beast sect or has some relationship with the strange beast sect, please make a bid. First, use spirit stones as a reward for collecting these corpses, and second, let the corpses of these disciples return to their homeland. Alright, I won't say any more. The 3 storage bags are bid separately. If someone wants to take all 3 storage bags, then that fellow Taoist has priority. Immediately afterward, Bai Xing listed out 3 exorbitant spirit stones. Humph, you make it sound so nice and dignified. Isn't it just for spirit stones? Xiaohua listened for a moment, and the anger in his heart somewhat dissipated. What Bai Xing said was also somewhat reasonable. Not all the corpses of disciples that died on the battlefield could be brought back by their fellow disciples. There were some people that were willing to collect these scattered corpses for the sake of spirit stones. This could be considered as some benefits, but in reality it was still for the sake of spirit stones. Disregarding everything else, just the number of spirit stones Bai Xing called out made the corner of Xiaohua's mouth twitch slightly. That was simply robbery. Are there fellow Taoists from the strange beast sect here? Bai Xing looked for a moment, and saw that no one was bidding. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Even these magic tools, no one wants them? Still, no one agreed. Obviously, there were no disciples of the strange beast sect among these cultivators. Forget it. Bai Xing clapped his hands and casually threw the 3 storage bags on the round table. Wait, Xiaohua stood up and called out. Oh? Fellow Taoist. Bai Xing's face flashed with joy. He waved his hand again, and the 3 storage bags fell into his hand. He smiled and said, Fellow Taoist's patience is really extraordinary. I almost thought that no one was bidding. This old man isn't bidding. This old man wants to ask. Xiaohua's hoarse voice sounded. How do we deal with these corpses of the strange beast sect? How do we deal with them? What does fellow Taoist mean? Bai Xing was a little confused. Isn't fellow Taoist bidding? What this old man means is, if no one bids for these corpses in the end, how do we deal with them? Xiaohua suppressed his anger and asked. Oh, so that's what fellow Taoist meant. Bai Xing casually threw the storage bags on the ground again and said, If it's the magic tools, this Bai and the others can send them to the auction or the trade fair. But the tokens and corpses. We have no other choice but to burn it. Why can't we send them back to the strange beast sect? Or let them pay less spirit stones? Xiaohua thought that although burning them was better than leaving them in the berserk corpse snowfield, he still didn't give up and asked. Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. Bai Xing's lips curled into a smile. This Bai and the others spent spirit stones to collect these corpses. Moreover, this Bai and the others also have to pay for running this auction. Fellow Taoist, you don't think that this Bai is doing this here, and the city guards of Sky Patrol City or the higher-ups of Sky Patrol City don't know about it, right? All of this costs spirit stones. Besides, if this Bai gives these corpses to the strange beast sect, how can they give this Bai spirit stones? Let's assume that they will give spirit stones for the time being. Then the one who will give these corpses to the strange beast sect won't be this Bai, right? The smile on Bai Xing's face was inexplicable. Even if they want to give this Bai spirit stones, fellow Taoist, how many spirit stones do you want for each corpse? Just the amount that fellow Taoist Bai mentioned just now, won't do? Xiaohua was a little puzzled. Why don't fellow Taoist Bai just take a little reward? Wouldn't that be perfect? Cultivator, don't ask if you don't understand. A cultivator next to Xiaohua said coldly. Don't waste this old man's time for nothing. Bai Xing chuckled and didn't explain any more. He clapped his hand again and took out another 4 storage bags. He said with a smile, These are the corpses of the disciples of Chenfangu of the main kingdom, but they are not magic treasures. There are only tokens and corpses. This Bai has 4 bags. One has 10, the other 2 have 23 and 45. Which fellow Taoist wants them? What does this mean? Xiaohua was even more puzzled. At this time, seeing that there were no cultivators in the front row bidding, the cultivator who scolded Xiaohua just now raised his hand and said, "This old man wants the storage bags of the 23 cultivators." "Okay." Bai Xing waved his hand, and the storage bags flew to the cultivator's hand. The cultivator also took a look and didn't take out any storage bags. Xiaohua understood that the 23 cultivators' corpses didn't have as many spirit stones as the cultivator paid, so there was no need to take out any more spirit stones. "Does anyone want the items in the other 2 bags?" Bai Xing asked. However, at the same time, he waved his hands and coldly threw the 2 storage bags on the round platform, as if he knew that no one would ask again. Sure enough, no one said anything. The whole place was very quiet. Even the sound of the 50 or so Chenfan Valley disciples' corpses falling on the high platform could be faintly heard. No. Xiaohua was a little restless. "Even if I don't want any tokens or magic treasures, these corpses, I can't let them blaspheme them like this. They simply don't take us, the disciples who fought a bloody battle, seriously." When he thought of this, a strange feeling arose in his heart. If that cultivator was a disciple of Chenfan Valley, why did he only want 23 corpses? Then why didn't he want the remaining 45 corpses? Could it be that he doesn't have enough spirit stones? If that's the case, even if I have to take out some spirit stones, I'll still help him. But how am I supposed to ask for it? Alright, next up is the Heavenly Profound Sect's disciple. There are only 2 storage bags. One of them has 12 corpses and the other has 37 corpses. Bai Xing asked the disciple to take out another 2 storage bags. Before Bai Xing could finish speaking, a cultivator who was slightly closer to Xiaohua raised his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist Bai, this old man wants the 37 storage bags." "Oh?" Bai Xing raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. "Fellow Taoist, you're quite straightforward. In that case, this old man will not let you down. Fellow Taoist, please don't worry. I won't let you suffer a loss in terms of spirit stones." This old man naturally believes in fellow Taoist Bai," the cultivator replied with a chuckle. "All right. Wait." 2 voices sounded at the same time. One was naturally Bai Xing's, and the other was a cultivator who was slightly more interesting than Bai Xing. "Oh?" A trace of joy flashed across Bai Xing's eyes. He pointed his finger and said, "Could it be that this fellow Taoist wants to make a bid?" -8. Chapter 2476. That's right, this old man is going to bid. That cultivator stood up and reported a number. This is unexpected. The cultivator from before looked at the cultivator in front of him and seemed to be thinking about something. However, when he saw Bai Xing's encouraging gaze, he calmly reported a number as well. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, the bidding didn't last long and only lasted for 3 rounds. The cultivator who made the final bid smiled and said, "Forget it, this old man won't bid anymore. Give me the 12 storage pouches." Thank you, senior brother." The cultivator who made the first bid cupped his hands and took the storage pouch. The cultivator who made the next bid took the other storage pouch. "Senior brother?" Xiaohua somewhat understood. "I reckon these 2 cultivators are disciples of the Chenfan Valley." In the next hour, Bai Xing took out the corpses of many disciples from various sections. There were truly too many to count. The smallest amount was a storage pouch with a few corpses, while the largest amount was a storage pouch with 100 corpses. Other than the corpses of a few sect's disciples that no one wanted, all the other corpses had cultivators bidding. It was rare to see a disciple of the Chenfan Valley bidding. "All right, next are the corpses of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples." Bai Xing smiled and clapped his hands. A disciple brought up 4 storage pouches. "There are 10, 21, 35, and 52 inside. I wonder which fellow Taoist is going to bid? This old man wants them." How could Xiaohua let the corpses of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples fall into the hands of others? He raised his hand and said, "This old man wants all 4 storage pouches?" "What? Fellow Taoist wants all of them. Bai Xing was stunned. He pointed his finger and said, These are the corpses of more than 100 cultivators. This merit. Fellow Taoists, don't you think this is too great? What? Merit? Xiaohua was stunned. This sentence was like a spark that ignited him. A surge of hot blood suddenly rushed to his brain. His entire body was trembling, and goosebumps covered his skin. They actually took the corpses of my Imperial Thunder sect, no, all the cultivators who died in battle on the battlefield as their own merit. They actually used these corpses as a trade. This is their merit. Xiaohua roared in his heart. Xiaohua, who was scheming, shrewd, and experienced, actually didn't expect that there would be such a group of people in Sky Patrol City after the battle. They were using the corpses of cultivators to earn spirit stones. There were also some shameless cultivators who used dirty spirit stones to exchange for these noble corpses, and then used these corpses to exchange for fake merit. Fellow Taoists, Bai Xing said in a low voice. Have you made up your mind? The battle merits of these 100 corpses are simply too great. Fellow Taoists, I'm afraid you won't be able to explain this to your sect, right? If the sect pursues this matter, we won't be able to handle it. Killing intent flashed through Xiaohua's eyes once again, and his hands trembled slightly. He was confident that if he were to make a move himself, the several tens of gold core cultivators in this space would definitely not be his match. Furthermore, since they were doing such a dirty deal here, they definitely wouldn't dare to expose their whereabouts, and they definitely wouldn't be discovered by others. Fellow Taoist? Have you made up your mind? Bai Xing didn't expect that he was lingering in front of the gates of hell. He urged, There are still some corpses behind, and other fellow Taoists are also waiting. Sigh, a trace of understanding flashed through Xiaohua's mind, and he thought of the darkness when he walked out of the Imperial Thunder sect. In this world, there is only light and darkness always comes after light. Without light and darkness, there would be no dawn-rain continent. Forget it. Even if this young master kills all the cultivators here today, this kind of trade will definitely not be severed in the future. Although they are doing these dirty deals, the corpses of the cultivators who died in battle can still return to their respective sects. At the very least, their corpses will be burned to ashes in Sky Patrol City. Fellow Taoists, are you going to bid? The few cultivators beside him also urged. This old man doesn't want it for now. Xiaohua, who had finally understood, immediately sat down. How could he possibly spend his spirit stones on such a dirty transaction? What? Bai Xing was stunned again. Then, he rolled his eyes and said with a smile, It doesn't matter, these corpses are in my hands. If this fellow Taoist has other ideas, feel free to tell me. Then, he threw 4 storage bags on the high platform and took out other storage bags. After another hour, the bidding for the corpses of the cultivators was over. Bai Xing kept the storage bags that were not bid on, and took out dozens of storage bags. He said with a smile, The following storage bags are naturally filled with the corpses of sword cultivators. They are placed according to the cultivation level of the pregnant sword and the number of sword cultivators. I won't say more about the details. Everyone, please bid. The corpses of sword cultivators were different from the corpses of disciples of various sections. Every cultivator could ask for credit, but every cultivator had to bid according to their cultivation level and the swordsmen they encountered in battle. Therefore, once these storage bags were placed on the high platform, it immediately attracted the bidding of many cultivators. Listening to the sound of bidding, Bai Xing's face was full of smiles. He felt that every sound was a shiny spirit stone. Looking at the extremely lively scene in front of him, Xiaohua seemed to have nothing to do with it. He just looked at this farce of fighting for credit with a mocking expression. The intensity of the bidding was really no less than the bloody storm on the battlefield. Perhaps, when the elders in the conference hall saw this young master reveal so many corpses that day, they also felt some disdain in their hearts, right? Xiaohua secretly mocked. Compared to them, this young master's battle achievements are much less. Or perhaps, this young master also wants to get some corpses of swordsmen? Anyway, this young master doesn't care about credit, it's better to exchange them for spirit stones. Xiaohua's thoughts were also somewhat active. But then, Xiaohua's heart trembled, and he secretly said, "Damn it, this young master still wanted to kill these cultivators just now. Why do they seem to be wallowing in the mire now? Then isn't this young master the same as them? Isn't this adding fuel to the fire? Alas, the temptation in this world is really too great." This sword cultivator's corpse was bid for more than half an hour before it fell to the ground. Even the cultivators in the front row also participated in the bidding. It was clear how popular this sword cultivator's corpse was with these cultivators. All right. When all the cultivators were satisfied and sat down, Baixing clapped his hands with a red face and said with a smile, "Thank you for your support, fellow Taoists. Below are some slightly more valuable items. This Bai has also placed them in his storage bag. Please bid." As he spoke, several disciples brought over a dozen storage bags and placed them in front of Baixing. They cupped their hands at the crowd and left. "What are these?" Xiaohua secretly thought. "If these aren't corpses, this young master will bid. These are the flying boats used by various sections. Of course, some are damaged. However, in this Bai's opinion, it doesn't matter whether they are damaged or not. As long as you bring them back to your sects, they will all be. Haha, good." Baixing immediately called out the names of the flying boats, and the required number of spirit stones. Of course, these flying boats were the same as the corpses of the disciples of various sections. If they didn't belong to their sects, it would be useless for them to take them. They would inevitably suffer the same fate as Xiaohua. However, the flying boats required a lot of spirit stones. It seemed that only a few cultivators in the front row were bidding. Eh? The cultivator in the front row doesn't seem to be bidding. Seeing the cultivators in the front row raising their hands to bid, Xiaohua suddenly saw the cultivator who came in with him. He couldn't help but wake up. Could it be that he's the same as me? This isn't possible, right? Just as Xiaohua was thinking, Baixing raised his hand and took out a storage pouch. Inside this storage pouch is the thunder-controlling Sect's thunderboat. Hee, I spent a lot of money to purchase it. Which fellow Taoist wants it? Although Baixing didn't say which fellow Taoist he was talking about, his gaze had already fallen on Xiaohua. Everyone already understood that Xiaohua was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Of course, Xiaohua had already clearly seen which sect the cultivators present were from. However, everyone understood that no one would be able to break the other's cover by shouting at each other. Oh, right, apart from the cultivator who hadn't bid, no one knew his background. How many spirit stones? Xiaohua raised his hand. Haha, the thunderboat of the Imperial Thunder sect didn't participate in the battle here. This old man doesn't know where it came from. Moreover, it's a bit damaged. If fellow Taoist wants to bid, you must think of a good reason. Baixing was indeed very considerate. He reminded Xiaohua and said the number of spirit stones. So much! Xiaohua was a bit dumbfounded. Fellow Taoist should be clear in his heart. Baixing looked as if he wasn't afraid that Xiaohua wouldn't take the bait. The thunderboat of the Imperial Thunder sect has always been rare. Moreover, it can carry a lot of people. Even if this thunderboat is a bit damaged, I'm afraid the Imperial Thunder sect isn't willing to part with it, forget it. Xiaohua reached out and took out a storage pouch from his chest. He handed it over and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Bai, please take a look, hee. Apart from what fellow Taoists paid earlier, these spirit stones are just right. Baixing said with a smile. After receiving the storage pouch from Baixing, Xiaohua scanned it with his divine sense. There really was a thunderboat inside. However, the thunderboat was already damaged. Moreover, the damage seemed to be quite serious. Like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that it couldn't be used, if it wasn't seriously damaged, how could this little bit of spirit stones be exchanged for a thunderboat? Xiaohua sneered. However, this guy doesn't know. Why would this young master use spirit stones to exchange for battle achievements? After receiving the thunderbolt, Xiao Hua calmly sat down. The purpose of coming here had been accomplished. His spirit stones weren't wasted. As for the dry separation pill, to be honest, Xiao Hua didn't have any hope in his heart. -8. Chapter 2477. After a short while, Bai Xing clapped his hands and bowed as he said, "Thank you for your support, fellow Taoists. I've run out of things to offer, so if any of you have any other ideas, you can contact me in private." Xiao Hua knew that Bai Xing was talking to him, but he sat there calmly like a mountain. "Next, it's time for you to exchange what you have. As usual, the fellow Taoists in the front row will speak first, and they will have priority," Bai Xing said with a smile. "Of course, if you stay in the Sky Survey Tea House for a long time, you will be able to get a tiger tally from the fellow Taoists in the front row in the future. Naturally, you will have priority." After saying that, Bai Xing raised his hand and smiled at the cultivator in the front row. "Fellow Taoist, you can take out what you want to bid or say what you want to bid for. If any fellow Taoist here or the Sky Survey Tea House has it, we can provide it to you." "Okay." The cultivator stood up and said in a strange voice, "I came here to collect some things and also to ask for a rejuvenation pill. May I know which fellow Taoist has this item?" "Hee." Bai Xing laughed before the cultivator beside him could answer. "Fellow Taoist, you have come to the right place. The Sky Survey Tea House just happened to have a rejuvenation pill. May I know how much you are willing to pay?" "Ah? There's a rejuvenation pill here?" Not only Xiao Hua, but the other cultivators were also shocked. "Damn it, it seems like the Sky Survey Tea House and the Sky Survey City's auction fair are colluding," Xiao Hua thought to himself. Immediately after, the cultivator sent a voice transmission to Bai Xing to negotiate. Bai Xing revealed a difficult expression as if she was trying to bargain. After a short while, the two of them finished negotiating. Just as Bai Xing was about to hand over the rejuvenation pill to the cultivator, a cultivator beside the cultivator stood up and angrily said, "Fellow Taoist Bai, since you have the rejuvenation pill, why didn't you take it out earlier? This way, we can also bid for it, and you can get more spirit stones. Even if I want to bid now, I don't have the chance." "Hee, fellow Taoist, you should know that the rejuvenation pill is an item in the Sky Survey City's auction fair. I can't bid for it here. If fellow Taoist wants to bid for the rejuvenation pill, you can go to the auction. As for the item that my Heavenly Survey Tea House wants to negotiate, I'm sure fellow Taoist knows about it." Bai Xing smiled apologetically and said, "Of course, if this fellow cultivator has a need and can make a request here, since the Sky Survey Tea House can help, we will naturally help. Even if fellow Taoist brought it up first, I would still give it to fellow Taoist. However, this rejuvenation pill is very rare. I only have one. I'm very sorry." "Sigh, all right." When the cultivator heard this, he knew that Bai Xing's words were reasonable. He could only sit down dejectedly, feeling very unwilling in his heart. "All right, fellow Taoist, please speak." Bai Xing handed the rejuvenation pill to the cultivator and respectfully said to the cultivator who came in with Xiao Hua, "Dao friend hasn't said anything yet," which made this Bai confused. Could it be that everything before didn't go to Dao friend's mind? The cultivator didn't stand, but instead said coldly, "I don't need these. I only came here to ask a question. If anyone can answer even half a sentence, I have spirit stones to pay." "Oh? If that's the case, then please say it. There are many fellow Taoists here, maybe someone will know." Bai Xing wasn't surprised. "I want to ask, who knows if the person who assassinated Tu Hong was a swordsman or a cultivator? If it was a swordsman, which sword sect was he from? If it was a cultivator, which sect was he from?" The cultivator said indifferently. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at that cultivator in confusion. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly jumped. Cough, cough. Bai Xing smiled bitterly and said, "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. Wasn't Senior Tu Hong killed by Qin Jian, a sword cultivator? Who else could it be? Besides, how could it be a cultivator? Could it be a golden core cultivator from the conference hall? The cultivator didn't seem to intend to answer his question. Instead, he looked around and said, "Which fellow Taoist knows? This old man has spirit stones to pay for it." As he said that, he slapped his hand and took out a storage pouch and threw it to Bai Xing. Bai Xing caught it and scanned it with his divine sense. His expression changed greatly. He looked at the cultivator and reported the number of spirit stones in the pouch. This time, even Xiaohua's expression changed. Good heavens, so many spirit stones! This young master really wants to sell himself. Fellow Taoist. A cultivator diagonally across from Xiaohua stood up and said in a low voice, "I don't know if this person is a cultivator or a swordsman. However, it was a coincidence that day. I saw a person using a very strange concealment technique. Alright, tell me in detail. Time, location, and possible direction of escape. As long as this old man is satisfied, I can give you a portion of the spirit stones." The cultivator nodded and answered, There really isn't a wall that doesn't have a crack in the world." Xiaohua's back was covered in cold sweat. He clearly saw that day that there weren't any cultivators nearby and there wasn't any divine sense. However, this cultivator actually knew the place where he used his concealment technique. This was really something he didn't expect even in his dreams. Next, the cultivator transmitted his voice. Xiaohua couldn't hear what they were saying. However, in the end, the cultivator really took out some spirit stones and handed them to the cultivator. It seemed that there was some clues. Who is this cultivator? Why did he come here to inquire about this young master's whereabouts? Xiaohua unconsciously stared at the cultivator a few more times. However, the cultivator's confusion blocked the cultivator's view. Xiaohua couldn't see anything clearly. Another cultivator stood up and raised his hand. That day, when Qin Jian attacked Tu Hong, this Taoist was also nearby. I saw the situation clearly. I have been puzzled these past few days. After hearing what fellow Taoist said, I suddenly realized that an attack. Fellow Taoist, you can transmit your voice. The cultivator coldly reminded, as if he didn't want the surrounding cultivators to hear. Soon after, the two cultivators continued to transmit their voices. While Xiaohua's back was covered in cold sweat, he closed his eyes again and carefully thought about the situation that day. It seemed that he didn't miss anything. The sword formation he used was something he hadn't used before. The Dream Executioner used 64 sword rays, which was definitely a big deal. The most likely problem was the green and red sword rays. It seemed that some of the Tao sect's disciples had seen them before. However, Xiaohua's biggest advantage was that he wasn't even at the mid-stage of foundation establishment, so it was impossible for him to fall into the eyes of others. Sure enough, after the two transmitted their voices for a long time, the cultivator was silent for a moment. He pointed at his storage bag and tossed it to the cultivator, who stood up. Fellow Taoist is right. In this old man's opinion, this old man is also puzzled. All right, if there aren't any more clues, these spirit stones are this fellow Taoist's. I still have some here. Hearing that the interrogation was about to end, several cultivators stood up. And, fellow Taoists, transmit your voices separately, the cultivator said indifferently. But after an hour, when the cultivators finished transmitting their voices, the cultivator shook his head. Fellow Taoists, this old man won't say anything about some of them, but the other two fellow Taoists have already said it. Forgive this old man for not being able to give you the spirit stones. If there aren't any more fellow Taoists, this old man will give these spirit stones to this fellow Taoist. Clearly, among these cultivators, there were some who were passing themselves off as fish eyes. They were easily discovered by this cultivator. Since this cultivator had already vaguely pointed it out, the few greedy cultivators behind him who still wanted to get lucky gave up. No one said another word. All right, half of the spirit stones in this storage bag are fellow Taoists. The cultivator waved his hand and the storage bag landed in the hand of the cultivator who had sent the voice transmission. The cultivator very familiarly took out half of the spirit stones in the storage bag and returned the remaining spirit stones to the cultivator who had sent the voice transmission. The price negotiation at the Sky Survey Tea House is really not bad. The cultivator took the storage bag and stood up. He shouted, Bai Xing, open the restriction. This old man is leaving. Fellow Taoist. Bai Xing smiled bitterly. It's not dawn yet. The prohibition of the Sky Survey City is still in effect. Ha ha. Since this old man can come, naturally, I can also leave. The cultivator only said one sentence and walked behind the crowd. Yes, this Bai understands. Bai Xing seemed to wipe the sweat on his head. He cupped his hands at the crowd and walked quickly to the front of the cultivator. He respectfully opened the restriction and sent him out. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Bai Xing returned and bowed to the crowd. This Bai is really sorry to have made all fellow Taoists wait for so long. Fellow Taoist Bai, who is that person? A cultivator couldn't help but ask. Bai Xing smiled apologetically. Forgive this Bai for not recognizing you. Fellow Taoist, who are you? The cultivator didn't say anything after hearing this question. Haha. Bai Xing laughed apologetically again. Those who come to my Sky Survey Tea House are all giving you face. I'm only in charge of negotiating prices and earning some hard-earned spirit stones. I don't know anything else. Please forgive me, fellow cultivators. Well, let's not talk nonsense. It's my turn. A cultivator in the front row stood up and said, This old man wants to find some primordial true wood. I wonder if any fellow Taoist has it? Or do you have information about it? Primordial true wood. Xiao Hua curled his lips. Why don't you want primordial true water or primordial gold qi? I have them in my space. Xiao Hua had primordial gold mother and primordial jellyfish in his space. Not to mention primordial gold qi and primordial true water, even primordial unity green light and primordial unity green light could be easily obtained. However, when these two primordial true wood fell into Xiao Hua's space, it was a different scene. It was not as arrogant as it was on the Dawn Rain continent. Xiao Hua received the two items. He was very afraid of them, so he threw them far away at the edge of the space. He was afraid that these two items would have some strange properties. -8. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.